Good evening, chat. We'll be getting going in just a second. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a series we are calling Dear Bungie. I am joined here today with the smooth voice haver himself. I already messed it up. Ascendant Nomad.
Hello. Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you. I promise you that. We've got a little discussion that we've got prepared for you guys here. We're going to kind of go through these points. This is going to be a more loose-fitting sort of bullet point system. We're going to be discussing some stuff that you guys want to bring up as well. If you have a topic you absolutely want us to talk about, we will latch on and prioritize topics that come through super chats primarily, but obviously we're going to be looking at chat as well. Thank you for everybody who is up here late tonight, because I know that we're streaming at an unusual time. How you feeling, Nomad? You feeling okay? I know it's pretty early for you right now.
Yeah, it is 8:20 a.m. for me. I have had a wonderful night's sleep, not. And I'm ready to talk about why Bungie cannot win. Thank you, everybody, for joining us at this weird time.
Yes, a little bit of an unusual time, but the focus of today's topic here is game modes. We're going to be looking primarily at a lot of the changes that came through. Ironically, we had planned to talk about game modes far before the patch notes were just released, but obviously now that the patch notes are out and Checkmate was a big target of a lot of the changes, it's a great ripe topic. It's just, it happened to work out this way. I am very happy it worked out this way. Fortuitous. Anyway, I've even got all these fun things here. Nomad, I'm assuming I had to take a bit of a guess here, but yeah, you're a hunter, right? Like you tend to main hunter.
Yes, I am a hunter, yeah. Okay. Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, okay. Well then,
yeah.
My guess was pretty good then, I suppose. All right. Anyhow, what's up?
No, I was just gonna say I've been playing Titan a lot this season, and I've seen the light. It's taken 10 years, but I've started to see the light. Titan's just kind of got it all at the moment. Anyways, didn't want to derail it, but there you
go. We will talk a lot about the balance of things, because I think that's a definitely like a large hot topic for a lot of people, and I think ironically game modes in particular, and this is why I want to talk about this today. Game modes in particular tend to drive more how we engage with our weapons than a lot of people think. I feel like people often consider when you're talking about balance and such, I don't think game modes ever enter into the discussion, so we'll definitely take a look at that here. But let's start with the broad, kind of more overarching topic with everything here. And let's talk about the current state of Destiny 2, in particular Crucible, because you and I are both Crucible people, right? And a lot of people here who are joining us here are Crucible people. And even if you're not a Crucible person, it's, I would argue, interesting to take a look at where everything is currently kind of falling apart on our side of things. You know, like it definitely feels like there's been an ongoing neglect for the Crucible scene for a while, and obviously we'll mention.
I mean, this is nothing new. How many videos have we both made about this subject, right?
Yeah.
You know, like, what I will say, it's been better than recent years for sure. We have a PvP strike team. We have definitely a lot more communication and TWIDs or TWABs or whatever you're calling them these days. We have more game modes and we have more maps, and that's the objective fact of the matter. But at the same time, we're still dealing with what feels like a very half-assed attempt. It feels like there's one guy in the back of a shed doing it all. Because there's the changes, whilst they seem good on paper, they're not as wholesale and experiential in the game itself. Because, you know, we for example, for a couple of weeks, we've had this, you know, we've been able to select what kind of 6v6 experience we've had.
Right.
Most people will miss that drop down. You know, when you click on the main control node, and then there was a little box at the bottom that said, I think it was checkmate control or normal control or something like that.
Right.
There was no clear UI element displayed to say, hey, you can choose which one you want here. Or there wasn't a second screen that forced you to pick a thing. It was just like, this is the default, and if you want to change it, you have to manually do that. How many people are going to actually do that? My guess is not many people even knew that existed.
I didn't even know that
and then-
existed. I like when it was pointed
Yeah.
out to me. I'm like, wait, really? I like people like, oh, just go play
Yeah.
normal control. I'm like, what? That's that. But
And
it's
then
only
when you
Checkmate.
when you did that, you realized that with skill-based matchmaking on, the only people who actually knew that existed, the 5 people who knew that existed, are most likely going to be super, super good players because they're looking for that.
Yeah, the veterans and such. Right, exactly. Yeah, and Checkmate has been an interesting experiment with Bungie because like they've talked about that they want to make Checkmate more of the main mode, right? But as time has gone on, what we've seen is that they've continued to push things back towards the middle, which I would argue, like, where do you stand? Just out of curiosity, actually, Nomad, where do you stand with the Checkmate, like as a game mode in general? Do you like Checkmate? Is that a good thing, or do you consider it to be something that you generally try to avoid, or what's your opinion on it? I'm actually curious here.
I think okay. So my perspective is here's some background. It's just like I've played Halo, I played Counter-Strike. I've had a fair amount of PvP history, and for me, Checkmate's one of the best game modes they ever came up with.
Really?
Because I love it when your aim is priority. I love it when you are valued on your skill with the weapons, your positioning, your game sense, all of the stuff that we've talked about, right? The reason our channels existed was helping people in the Crucible. So it really brings a sharp focus onto all of those things we talked about. However, I think the implementation of Checkmate has been a little bit botched. I do not agree with the fact that they made hand cannons the default pick, and they nerfed everything else by way of nerfing their body shot damage or the precision damage. Basically, they're trying to enforce a very hand cannon friendly playstyle. I think, look, I realize why they did that, and I think that's definitely them listening to the community because the PvP people mostly play with hand cannons.
Yeah.
Based on trials, weapons usage percentage, etc.
Right.
But if you're going to make a new default for the Crucible, you need to take into account that I think most people use auto rifles, or most people like to stay at the back with scouts and pulses. You can't just favor one weapon archetype over the other. That being said, you had to start somewhere. And I do really like the fact that they went all in with a unique game mode and a unique experience. Like, this is not your regular Crucible, this is something different. And to see them walk back the changes that they have here is a little disappointing, but at the same time, we're still, as long as we have Checkmate as an identifier for this game mode, to me, that just says we're in beta. So we know things are going to change.
Yeah. And that's kind of been my position too, is that I actually started out really disliking Checkmate. And this was me coming in with like my Mida multi-tool and going, why the hell is my Mida not 4-tapping on a headshot? It just felt horrible. Right. It felt so bad. It was like, why would I ever play this? Like this, my play style is getting specifically targeted and being slapped on the wrist and saying, no, you're not allowed to play that here. Right. Obviously, they eventually moved that back, and they changed it towards, they're actually worth a damn, right? But it is interesting because you mentioned the hand cannon stuff, and that's often when I discuss this game mode with people, because my current position on it is that I like the direction that Checkmate is going. I'm not a huge fan of each of the pieces of execution, which is something that you mentioned as well, that it sort of feels like it's in beta right now. Right. My biggest point of contention was not even necessarily the things with the special ammo and such, although that is a problem, which I've talked about in videos in the past, and I'll kind of re-mention it here in just a bit. And the ability stuff is just like the what they're trying to target, I feel like, is sort of like a duct tape solution to a much bigger problem, if that makes sense. Like, one of the things I just saw on Twitter, which we will be doing some stuff on the interwebs here too, as I've got this little TV screen in the back, is functional, by the way, chat. One of the things I saw on Twitter is from Ferris, and Ferris was talking about how, he doesn't upload much anymore, but Ferris was talking about how it's not necessarily the frequency of the abilities that are the problem, in his opinion. It's the strength of the abilities. Like, abilities by themselves are just too strong, so even if you slow them down, they're always going to be like a punctuation for whenever they do come out. They're always going to be a thing that kind of just like wins the fight or whatever, right? And I would like to see them take a bigger address towards that, of it being not necessarily like, let's say, uptime of abilities, but just the power of abilities, right? Because if you think back to even like Destiny 1, abilities are a lot more frequent and arguably more powerful, but I think the major difference is that they had a lot more counterplay, right? And I think that's kind of like what's lacking. But
It's
yeah,
it's a tricky one, right? Because I do remember that year one, year three meta, or D1 year three meta, and it was terrible. Like your opening salvo, I was teaching people, listen, equip Warlock, equip Fusion Grenade. Your first job is to run in, throw a Fusion Nade, and hope for the best.
yeah,
And then
fusion
you can
grenades are
use your
problem.
weapons.
Yeah,
And we're back at this point where we're kind of similar, especially with Threaded Spectre, Threadlings, and all that.
yeah.
But in terms of counterplay, I see. This is the thing: you can never discount abilities as part of the Destiny experience. As much as I'm a primary weapon kind of guy, use your guns, etc. A lot of people do play Destiny PvP for that unique blend. I agree that abilities feel a little strong at the moment. They feel a little bit prevalent. I say keep their power, just nerf their recharge time, which is what Checkmate does. But the going from 30% nerf to 15% nerf in terms of a cooldown feels a bit harsh.
One of the things I'm surprised they haven't tried doing, and this is something that they do in momentum control, which I feel like momentum control was sort of like a good place to get some data from. So I'm surprised they don't do what momentum control does, which is you don't gain abilities unless you get a kill or deal damage or something like that. So like, let's say that you've got, let's say, max discipline. You can camp till you're blue in the face, but it doesn't do anything for you. However, if you get a kill, max discipline is going to recharge your grenades significantly faster than if you were lower, right? So something like that encourages weapon gameplay, making abilities more of an end goal as more of a reward, right? Rather than it just being something that is just constantly kind of like stiff-armed. Like, I guess that's my problem, is that I think the best parts of Destiny, the most interesting and unique parts of Destiny, are the abilities, right? The gunplay and everything is fantastic, and I love that, right? But really where it ties in, in my opinion, where Destiny really stands on its own, and the reason why things have not been able to compete with Destiny is the interaction between those weapons and your abilities, right? Like, we've got guns that specifically interact with certain things, right? Specific abilities, like a demolitionist, or slice is a new one, right? Like things like that specifically interact. And I don't think, to my recollection, no other game does what Destiny can do on such a grand scale, right? So instead of making abilities something that's kind of like nasty and something to be avoided, make them something that is like something sought after and earned. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But somebody, Billy Can in chat says, wouldn't locking abilities behind kills lead to snowballing? Well, that is another great question. Let's talk about snowballing. I mentioned this in my discussion of Checkmate, my more recent discussion of Checkmate, where, in short, I basically said I didn't like Checkmate. I'm more on board with it now. However, and there's a list of things, one of the biggest things I had a problem with was, just like Billy said, snowballing. Snowballing is much more of a problem in Checkmate, especially now because of the way that special ammo, like, they're moving it back now because of the special ammo changes, but because of the way special ammo works in Checkmate, if you come in late, not only are you behind in super, but you're now also behind in special weapons. And the way that Checkmate, at least for me, tends to play is that I often can get more than what I need for my special weapons because I'm so encouraged to use my primary, right? And I'm going into fights now, starting out the entire game, where people have at least 3 kills worth of special on them. I can't compete, especially if my build, and this is the other issue, especially if my build has a built-in variety to it, like I tend to go long-range primary, close-range secondary, like a shotgun or a fusion, right? And if I just don't have access to close-range tools, I'm screwed, especially if people are now more aggressive because they have those tools in their tool belt. You know what I'm saying? So snowballing is a problem either way.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go for it.
I was just going to say, if you do lock abilities behind kills, you are definitely exacerbating the issue of snowballing. You could argue snowballing has always been a part of Destiny because, the longer a match goes on, or the more kills you get, the better you play, the more powerful you generally are. It just, when you die, if you die, you lose your special, you lose your, or you use your super, you won't get it back until you do it all over again, etc., etc. But Checkmate's games are so short that it does lead to a real situation where you are maybe 10 kills away from victory and the other team has barely got 20 on the board, So just for the length of the game that Checkmate is, the snowballing is a very, very real issue. Now, my instinct to anybody saying snowballing is get good, which is really, really, really bad thing to say and very elitist and not at all helpful. But when I look at it more critically, every single one of our tools, our grenade, our melee, our class ability, our weapons, all three of them or two of them, they're all tools, they're all levers. And there is an inherent unfairness in the way the game is balanced and always has been balanced, just because there's always things that are better than other things. And once you start messing with cooldowns, you make that problem even more of a problem. You make it more pronounced. Just like you were saying, where you always feel like you are feeling like you have a leg down on the competition if they're in a position or they're able to get their tools up and ready faster than you because they managed to get a kill. There isn't that even footing. There's never been even footing in the Crucible in terms of like, you have to use this, or you only these weapons are allowed, or anything like that. Most PvP games, everybody gets the same tools, and then with a slight bit of variation, and then good luck. And anything different is generally cosmetic. But in Destiny 2, your tools are what defines you and what defines your ceiling, more importantly. And as long as there is variation between that to such a degree, like conditional finality is a better shotgun than duality, let's just say, for example. As long as you have that discrepancy, there's always going to be an issue with snowballing. There's always going to be an issue with unfairness. I don't think there should be anything ever done in the game to make that unfairness more pronounced.
Okay, yeah, that's a very fair take. And like as you were talking about like the snowballing effect, something that kind of dawned on me as I was thinking about it is that we don't really have catch-up perks. Like
no,
we don't.
We don't.
Yeah, we don't have like perks where it's like I've been losing for X amount of games. And ironically, the best place where that could have come from would have been an origin trait on Crucible weapons, right? Where it's like something like that, right? But there's nothing that does that. It's an interesting thought. It's a very interesting
like Alacrity Light, 3 kills without dying, and you get boosted weapon stats. Or 3 deaths without kills, you get boosted weapon stats.
Exactly. Yeah.
Reverse Alacrity.
Interesting. Yeah, because like, how do you really solve snowballing? I don't think you really can, but I think it's something that at least needs to be brought into the discussion. And like we discussed, Checkmate is sort of the spotlight is on it right now, right? Eye of the Storm is the closest we have, says Shadow Destiny. Also, hello, Shadow Destiny. Yes, that and whatever the thing is called, the one where you're critically wounded, it reloads your weapons, and
Pulse Monitor.
Pulse Monitor, that's the one. Yeah. So that is it's an interesting thing to talk about. Anyway, let's talk about some things that Bungie has done well, because we've kind of talked about the broad topic, but let's narrow it down and talk about what Bungie has done well for game modes.
Let's not, because you can't do that on YouTube. Everybody will click away and they'll leave the video.
You gotta have negative opinions, right? You gotta have something that's spicy. But I mean,
TDT, your face looks funny.
Well, I think your face looks. Your mom, yeah.
No. You lost it. You lost. It took too long.
Damn.
Rib. F in the chat.
F in the chat for me. But yeah, let's actually talk about what game modes Bungie does well. And first of all, Control, just as a game mode, the fact that it's lasted almost 10 years at this point, I think goes to show how good of a mode, even if it's so simple, how good of a mode Control really is as just a good 6v6 mode.
Yeah.
Thoughts? All right, cool.
I have thoughts on Control. I mean, look, my thoughts on Control are very they come from a place where I've been playing this game for 10 years through 2 different iterations, all the different seasons, all that. I'm bored of Control. Like I don't disagree. Good. Mm-hmm. It's good, but like I don't like how Control has become the basis for everything PvP.
Yeah.
And everything is a variation of Control.
Yes.
Or a variation of Slayer for that matter. Where's our King of the Hill?
Yep.
Where's our actual Capture of the Flag?
Hey, now
why wasn't that ever considered?
Yep. Okay, you've taken the bait excellently. I'm so proud of you. Thank you so much.
Oh, you little
Let's talk about some new game modes, and let's talk about what Bungie does wrong. Yeah, Control is very inoffensive but
Yeah.
not particularly exciting. Exactly. I am very sick. Like, Control is great. Like I mentioned, the fact that it's lasted 10 years says that it is doing something right. But I am so sick of the Control-based game mode. I'm sick of it.
Mm.
I would love something that is new. And let's talk about Eruption. What are your thoughts on Eruption?
Again with the snowballing, right? Like that's the game mode's biggest problem. I liked that it promotes aggressive gameplay. I have always liked that. I don't like that they put huge maps in the mix. Because if you're going to create a mode that's centered around the idea of chaos, put 6 players on Anomaly or Cauldron or Burnout at the absolute biggest. Like we have a lot of maps in this game. Let's think about this a little bit more critically. You want people to move around. You want it to be fast and frenetic. Why don't you give them passive ammo special regeneration so they can deal with people? Or why don't you give them, increased super recharge rate? If you're going to go through the mayhem route, I guess you already have increased super regen with eruption kills, I suppose. But if you're going to go the mayhem route, go double down. Like this is one thing that I feel like a lot of game modes suffer from. Not just what's it called, eruption. It's just that there's a lack of follow through. There's an idea here. There's a very good idea here, and then you go ahead and put it in normal Crucible parameters. No, give us something wacky. If you're going to do eruption, it's going to be divisive. I totally accept that. But as long as there's variety and there's something interesting here, when you say if you have playing Iron Banner, and let's say for example, I'm going to blow your mind here. What if you had Iron Banner? But there was a rotator between Eruption, Control, and Fortress.
You mean
like every week?
Like actual variety? I think that's asking too much.
Yeah, so bear with me here. They've done this
My
before in
mind is
Destiny
being
2. It's
blown.
called
Hold
Quick
on.
Play.
Yeah, Quick Play. What's that? Explain that to me.
Yeah, so the Quick Play was one playlist where you had it was mostly Control, but the idea was you could put in all your 6v6 game modes, and you could have different experiences. Now, if you ever did that for normal Crucible, first of all, you solidify the idea that 6v6 Crucible is a party mode, right? You're going in there for a fun time. You're not going in there for a long time.
Right.
If you want actual dedicated playlists, you have comp, you have trials, you have rumble, right? And you have labs and whatever else is there. So you make you keep everybody guessing. You change up the formula. You basically turn it into a more fun time with your friends because you're not dealing with the same shit all over again. So, oh shit, we got Fortress. Let's switch to this loadout. Let's talk about this. Let's do this. The way you play the game changes from game to game, which is not great at building consistent habits. It's not great for improvement. You want to keep that as consistent as possible. But then at least Crucible would be fun. It would be more social. It would be more interesting that way.
Yeah. Okay. I've got some thoughts. Let me take floor here for just a second. I'm going to work kind of.
I'm so sorry. I went off.
No, you're good. You're good.
Now.
You are A-okay. In fact, I prefer when you talk because A, you sound better, and B, I have a tendency to just ramble on indefinitely. So if both of us ramble indefinitely, competitively, we'll find a happy medium. You know what I mean?
Skill-based rambling.
Skill-based rambling. Yeah. Anyhow, I want to talk about Eruption first. Have you played any Call of Duty games? Like, really played any Call of Duty games? No?
Yeah. Yes, I have.
You have. Are you familiar with the game mode Cranked?
Yes.
Okay. So Eruption is just cranked, right? But it's executed
It is just cranked, yeah.
poorly. It confuses me, and this is something that drives me nuts about Bungie. It confuses me that we have a outline for what a game mode like that should look like, and just that, like, that's it. And we don't just copy their homework, right? Like, Activision, freaking Raven Studios, and Treyarch, and whatever, they all figured it out already. They already got it figured out. We don't need to reinvent the wheel on this. And I doubt there is a copyright or a trademark, I think is probably more correct, for the Cranked as a game mode. You know what I mean? Like, obviously don't call it Cranked. Eruption works fine, right? But why are we out here reinventing the wheel? And more so, you're talking about like smaller maps and stuff. Great, and I agree. Why aren't we getting more creative with what we actually give players? It frustrates me. Like, one of my strengths, I like to think, whenever I do any sort of game design, anything, like I've been doing it basically since I was but a wee child and I can hold a pencil. One of the things that I always felt like I was good at is taking things that already exist and mixing them in new ways that are more interesting, right? Why don't we make Cranked, our version of Cranked Eruption, where as we continue to get kills on top of the Cranked timer, the Eruption timer, or whatever, right? Maybe we can increase abilities. Why not just like the first kill, you are amplified. The second kill, you now have restoration, where it's like it rewards you and it makes you go faster and play more aggressively, right? And then remove that stupid ass marker over my head. Why am I getting punished for doing well in the game?
Yeah, there's a lot of that in this game. There's a lot of that. Yeah. First of all, snowballing.
Yes. True.
Second of all, okay, so with respect to being creative and all this is a wider topic that I could rant on again. So please rein me in if I go too off.
I will let you know.
Pieced here. It feels like every PvP decision is being made from somebody who doesn't have a lot of FPS experience. So I know that's me being super. That's me being really, really super gamer with a capital G.
Yes.
Because, the YouTube comment section is very, very intelligent. You know how I know? Because they're going to tell us right now in the chat. Say you're very intelligent to show how intelligent you are. Uh-huh. Or I'm a smart boy. Say I'm a smart boy if you're a smart boy. It's it's saying something like they don't have FPS experience is a bit like saying, oh well, they don't read community comments or anything like that. It's not based in reality. It's only based on feeling. But from the evidence we have, either they are afraid of their own player base with their own lack of experience, which I think is the case because it feels like a lot of Destiny players don't play a lot of other FPSs. They're drawn in by the PvE. They're not necessarily like PvP. Players aren't picking up Destiny and saying, "Yo, this is great." It feels like it's targeting a different sort of crowd. Or there's some confusion at Bungie. Or option number 3, the real reason they're not allowed to make the changes they really want to make.
I've got a wild theory for you. Like you basically just hit the nail on the head. But like let me like. Anybody who is a TDT fan knows that I've got conspiracy theory shorts, right? And this is one of those shorts that isn't worth, or these conspiracy theories. Go ahead.
Every time I see that on my feed, I lose brain cells. No, okay.
Excellent. Good. That's my goal. That's the broader conspiratorial goal, is to make everyone lose brain cells and then we can take over the world. Anyway, this is one I've had for a minute, and I don't know. I think it was Mark, and he's in the chat right now, that like accidentally gave me this idea. Or rather, this thought. But I think, I'll say, it feels like, because we can only go off a feel, it feels like PvP, especially the newer modes and the newer stuff that's coming out, is not being designed by a PvP developer. It's being designed by a PvE developer. Eruption plays great if the person who was marked was an overload whatever. Like an overload thrall or something, like that makes sense. Because the way the game is structured and the way that they're punishing success feels more in line with how a PvE system would work. You know what I'm saying? Like, am I crazy here? Like, well, yes, but like, how crazy do you think that is?
I think that's pretty crazy, actually.
Yeah.
I know I sort of said something similar with saying I don't think they're looking at it from a FPS perspective per se, but I don't think calling it a PvE thing, like a PvE designer taking the reins for PvE, I think that's irresponsible. I think there's enough checks and balances for that not to happen. But for me, I think you're half right because you're not wrong in what you've just said. And those specific identifiers, you know what I think it is? I believe that they're trying to help PvE players do well in PvP.
That's probably more accurate. That's a good point.
Let's put a big shiny marker over the most powerful. Go kill that thing. Oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna go kill that thing, and then they walk headlong into a conditional finality, which is always funny.
Yeah.
Or in Fortress, you're not good at killing people. That's okay. Here's some targets for you to kill. You know how to kill those.
Mm-hmm. Like making it casual friendly, kind of being more the broader idea here. Yeah.
Yeah. They should have vandals sitting on the ledges of like Anomaly or Midtown, just one-shotting you like they do in GMs.
Okay.
Just go all in.
Interesting. But Anyway, getting back to the previous topic here, I'm upset that we don't mix and match what we already have in the game more frequently. Like I mentioned, like why not make when you're getting ready to erupt, give you some type of buff. Give it, even if it was random, that would be kind of weird, but that would be kind of in line with Destiny. Like make it to where, like I said, make it to where when you start to get those kills and you get a chain going, give yourself amplified. Now you're sprinting around the map really quickly, you know, and it shows up more. My bigger problem with eruption, this is just kind of like an aside, is that I don't know when I'm primed. I just kind of in the middle of action, and then I step back and I'm like, oh, I've got 10 seconds to find a kill, you know.
Yeah, that's it could be done better. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I also agree with we should have more creative, benefits for being erupted. I think they need to remove the super regeneration aspect of it. I think that needs to go big time. And it basically just forces you with the timer and everything to run 6-shot golden gun, which fair enough. You should do that all the time anyways because it's based.
Hunter, gross. Nova Warper, die.
Yeah. Okay, weirdo. Yeah, you're preaching to the choir here, mate. I do think that there should be a little bit more thought put into these experiences, and not from a how can we make this a safe and fun time for people who don't normally play PvP. I think there needs to be a more cohesive effort put into the experience and the value and the time of people who enjoy PvP for PvP.
Yeah.
People who like using their weapons, people and also people who like using their builds. Let's have a game mode where ability recharge rate is through the roof. Let's see what kind of crazy shit we get up through there. I know we have Mayhem. I know that's the thing. But that's very focused around supers. What if you had Mayhem without the super regen? And it was just abilities? Double down on that. That could be fun. It would be completely different.
Yeah.
Go all in on the experiences that you have, tweak them, and make them unapologetically what they are. Instead of having this situation where every game mode is just Slayer with extra steps.
Yep.
Everything is team deathmatch with extra steps.
Yep. I agree. And like you mentioned the ability thing, and like I think part of the thing is that Bungie is afraid to release things in Crucible that are unpolished, right? But the irony is,
but what
they keep releasing things that are unpolished, right? Rather than, like, I'll put it this way. I'll ask the chat. Let me ask you, chat. Would you rather have one game mode that is, let's say, 90% flushed out and complete? Or would you rather have 5 game modes that are all 50% figured out? Just out of curiosity. I'm genuinely curious, chat. Because I know what I would prefer. I would much rather have variety and be willing to overlook shortcomings and failures and problems and such and be like, oh yeah, it's just part of the game mode, whatever. Well, it's not like the standard. Can the 50% be fixed later? Yeah, like the expectation is that, things will get adjusted. I'm seeing a couple for one game mode. Yeah, but the vast majority, as long as the one game mode is combined arms, probably 90%, but 50% adds difference. Right? Yeah, interesting.
I think.
What would you prefer?
Combined arms is fun, but I never thought it was fun enough.
What would you, between the two, the 50%, the 50%, or the 90%, what would you prefer?
For the game we have right now?
Yeah, for like if we were to get 5 new game modes that are not quite completely finished and they've got some problems, or would you rather have something like Eruption where it comes out and it's mostly figured out?
I would do, given what we know of Bungie and how quickly they release things, I would do 1 for 90.
Okay.
Because we don't, like if we have 5 for 50, you're going to have more data for players to hit Bungie with, and that in turn will hurt the game and hurt the perception of the game and hurt the player base of the game. At least with 1 with 90, they really tested, they figured it out, there's more likely to be complete, and then we can just judge it and say, oh yeah, this is good, this is bad, this needs work. With 5 for 50, you won't, like with the current implementation, what are we going to get? We're going to get one game mode a week in labs off to the side somewhere, completely unfinished. It's going to make no difference to the PvP experience because Bungie would never in a million years put 5 unfinished game modes into one of the main playlists. It wouldn't happen.
But
so just being practical, 1 for 90, but being idealistic, 10 for 20. Like 5 for 50. The more variety, the better.
Yeah, I would argue that we haven't been abusing the Crucible Labs as a Crucible Lab at like we should at all. Like Crucible Labs has been just game modes that we already are very familiar with for the most part, and it doesn't make sense. Like we're gonna get like the Sparrow thing, which is cool, right? Like I feel like that's like the correct way to put like a Crucible Lab thing together, where it's weird,
Sure,
it's unusual.
But again, with this whole thing, I know we were talking about like doing this for PvP players by PvP players. But if you're a PvP player in Destiny 2, you do care about the loot too. And it's very bizarre to me that there's no incentive to go into labs aside from maybe getting your weekly exotic. Like there's as much incentive to go into labs as anything else, but you're not going to because it's off to the side, and UX dictates that everything that's important should be in the center. So unless you put labs front and center, people aren't going to play it, no matter what's in the game mode.
I would disagree with that. First of all, and somebody made mention of this too, I don't think loot matters as much anymore. I think we're at a place now where loot has stopped becoming as much of an incentive. Like we're at a place where we have so many different options and so many different varieties, and most of our stuff is so just good, especially veterans,
Sure.
right? It's really hard for Bungie to come out with new loot that makes us care. And if they do, it often is just a completely different perk. It's a perk that we don't have anywhere else. It's something that's unique, right? But
here's an idea, just that I'm going to steal from chat.
yeah,
What if labs gave experimental guns? Thank you, Zach.
I would be down for that. I'll steal another idea.
Or-
Imagine a workshop where we could create our own modes, maps similar to Forge. Yeah, I can do this too.
Oh, now you're talking. Imagine if there was a public tester. That's labs, actually.
Yeah, like
Imagine if there was connection-based matchmaking.
Yeah, like I think the even though we disagree on perhaps the specifics, I think the bigger agreement on this here is that we should be given more tools to mess around with, and that labs should be used a little bit more for those experimentations and such, right?
Well, yes. I also think that I do agree with you with loot not being what it was. I mean, I've done my own video on this. I was more thinking along the lines of like cosmetics. Imagine you got like a lab technician set, and it was literally just a fucking, sorry for the language. It literally was just a like an overcoat, like a lab coat.
Yep.
Like that's the armor set.
Yep.
That would be amazing.
Yep. I what happened? You remember the crowns, the glows that we used to have? What happened to those?
Yeah.
That used to be a sign
The
of
auras.
prestige. Yeah. We don't have those anymore.
I know.
Yeah.
God, there's so many ideas in and within Destiny's universe. I know game dev is hard, and we should always remember game dev is extremely difficult. Neither of us are game devs. We're just talking as fans. But there's no shortage of ideas, and I'm sure they've all been pitched. But until we get an update saying, "Hey, it's all good. We got rid of the bosses, and there's new ones in place, and they listen to us, and they make us feel warm,
right?
And they bake us cookies." All of this is just conjecture.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, like I think a lot of people don't really understand how hard game dev really is. I've even done a little bit of it myself, like nowhere near.
Oh, you have? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to speak for you.
No. Like I'm just saying, like even with the little stuff that I've done, right? It's just nowhere near the scale of what Bungie's done, right? It's freaking and it's hard. it's annoying.
It's very hard.
It's repetitive. It makes you want to punch a small puppy. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's very frustrating too, right? And room for forgiveness needs to always be there. And we're obviously at a place now where the goodwill bank is running dry, right? As time has continued to go on with Bungie, right? Like the continued monetization stuff, and the don't want to over deliver, and you're a content creator. You know the community sentiment is at an all-time high right now. But yeah. Anyway, all that to say, let's discuss some game modes, because I would love to see, personally, I would rather see more just wacky, weird stuff. And here's the thing, even if we just put it in private matches, like even if it was just like, this is clearly unfinished, but go freaking wild, go test this out.
That's an interesting thought. That's a really interesting idea, because the only people playing private matches are your big PvP evangelicals.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you say that word, right?
Yeah.
Because if you hear, okay, you can play this crazy game mode, but only in privates. Now, 90% of people don't play private matches. I feel like that's a very, very niche thing. It's a good thing, but a very, very niche thing. But if you have those 10% of players really shout its praises, then yeah, that'd be really, really cool. I'm for that.
What you would get as well is you'd get players like ourselves talking about it, because of course we're interested in it, and we've got the gusto to make it happen. We've got enough people like in our chat right now to go and start a lobby and to legitimately give it a shot, right? And to see if it actually was worth a damn and whether Bungie should pursue it, right? Like imagine if Eruption came out as a private match node first. Everybody tested it and went, hey, Eruption's cool. The abilities are maybe a little fast. Like if it was like checkmate abilities by default, and then while Eruption was active, it was like slightly above average normal ability regen, and maybe remove that annoying marker, or make it to where when I have the marker, I can see everybody else as well. Like the marker just needs to be changed somehow, right? Like I feel like that would be more concise feedback before it got brought to the community as a whole. And then like this stink of sentiment kind of, I don't know, wafts its way through. You know what I mean? Like it, like you get like a first filter of the more hardcores, and they can give you some feedback on it, and you can choose to, like, oftentimes, and this is the thing that I'm sure Bungie's aware of. Oftentimes, when you get feedback on something, it's, especially if it's negative, it's, even if they're wrong, there's probably some type of kernel and truth in there, right? It's like maybe they said that they don't like how quickly abilities come up, but maybe what they're more focusing on is that they feel like they have to use abilities in order to make a gun, you know, whatever, right? Like you can sift through.
This is what great community managers do, and what they're able to do is they can take the I hate Bungie, and then somehow turn that into actionable feedback.
Exactly, right. So like imagine having that kind of filter, and I bring that up because we've done just that. And in fact, I've got a little thing here that I would love for you to overview here, right? Let's talk about this here a little bit. Let me bring up my short. Donde está? Here we go. Hold on, chat. I need to make sure I get this up. All right. Boop. Okay. Everyone, please direct your attention to the screen, as we are now going to make sure here. Let me make sure that this is still up and working. Let me get the screen turned on. Sorry, chat. And there we go. You guys see all that? It's a little small, I know. We've got a... It's too far away from the camera, but you guys understand. All right, but you'll be able to hear it. Here we go. Most requested updates as feedback to the new PvP Strike team is new game modes, good game modes. Even though it may not look like it, Bungie already has all the tools already in game to create 3 new game modes right now. Number 1, I'm calling Attrition. This game mode is simply a 6v6 20 live survival match with only 2 rounds and a 5-minute timer. It may seem like this is just Clash with extra steps, but it forces players to really value their life while still keeping that 6v6 chaotic feel. Next is Payload, which I've talked about in this video here, but in short, it's Rift, but only one team can pick up the Spark, and the Spark Runner is slowed and has his abilities disabled, forcing good team play. Team play in T2? Absurd. Lastly is my personal favorite called Bare Bones, which I assume this will be sort of like the new Checkmate. Man, was I wrong. It's momentum control with no abilities. Basically, it's a more quote-unquote boots on the ground Destiny experience. I see no reason why we can't add at least one of these modes, basically tomorrow. Like and subscribe. All right. Was that a... There was applause all around. Yeah, cool. Anyway, like, my point is that I feel like we already have a lot of the tools ready and available to us, and we just need to just put them in a bottle and then ship it. You know what I mean? Like Attrition being a fantastic example of that, and also an example of, we did this. We took this into private matches and basically made it for ourselves and play tested it and went, hey, this is actually kind of cool. And this is really easy to do too. Right? Attrition being where it's just survival with a shite ton of lives in 6v6. Where now it's not, because like my bigger problem with like the Slayer based modes is that you're just encouraged to get kills. You're not really encouraged to play your life. You're just encouraged to just rush in, right? Whereas something like Attrition, where you have a certain amount of lives, now dying is more valuable to you, but you still have like stuff that you need to take over. You can even put down control zones so that you can take more points away from the team, something along those lines, right? But just subtle shifts can kind of bring players into more mindsets and more ideas. It can open up new ways of thinking about stuff, you know, and we have the tools already. Why can't we just experiment with it a little bit?
Do you think that there is an issue here where there's too many people who don't play PvP. So when they do go into PvP, whether it's for the pinnacle or if they're just curious, they want a new experience or whatever the case may be, they're then assaulted by a game mode that only works by people who are fluent in PvP. Because attrition survival are great examples of game modes where you need to have an understanding of, you need self-awareness. You need to play your life. You need to, watch your positioning. You need to value your skill in a gunfight. You need to do all these things. But in normal control, all of that goes out the window. You just run around for the entire thing, not shooting a damn thing, and you'd still win.
Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. And as somebody who has been working on a Discord game, even just on the side, players can be freaking stupid. And I like 100%. Players can be dull. Even if it's something very simple, and it's like, dude, it's in black and white. Like, you'll be able to see it firsthand. But I still think that that's kind of like cutting the player base as a whole short. I feel like players should be given more credit for being at least more competent on things, and especially if it's a game mode as simple as, like, it's just Slayer with extra steps, right? Giving it to where the rules of engagement are overall pretty similar. I mean, shoot, Eruption is a game mode. You know what I mean? Like, Eruption exists, and
it is one of the game modes of all time. Yes,
that is one of those ones where even myself, as a veteran player, gets caught off guard, right? And where I'm like, wait, I'm gonna die in 5 seconds. When did this happen? Right? I still think the player base is smart enough to be able to figure some of this stuff out, right? But even ignoring that, just putting it somewhere where players can at least get access to it is worth it. That is something that I feel like would not only, for Bungie's point of view, not only give them some data to work with and give them some feedback. You get the content creators on it, of course, like that, playing that card, like getting bigger names to talk about it, because they speak for the community one way or the other. I know as much as people will get upset at that, they speak for the community, at least in some capacity, because they're having to read the audience. They're having to kind of give their feedback on things from a perspective of, I got to filter it through what people I think are thinking as well. They're not always right. I'm never not always right. You're not always right. I know it's hard to say, but
that's not, I don't know what you just said there.
But like
I don't recognize your authority. Yeah.
You generally have to kind of have an understanding of your audience and what they want and what they don't want and such, and you get players on that. But more importantly, you would have good faith. You would get players back on board with going, yes, give us some stuff to play with. Even if it's not the most polished, it shows a certain level of vulnerability. It shows a certain level of, we're willing to allow ourselves to look like we're going to fail. And then let players have a ball with it. And more than that, I think players would go into it understanding, hey, this isn't something that we can really hold their feet to the fire for, because we know there's going to be some issues. Like I feel like there's like a certain breakdown in the communication there, that something like that, those more experimental stuff, would really help bridge that gap.
I think Kami put it best many, many years ago, which is something that he said, whether it was offhanded or something a little bit more permanent, I don't remember the context of. But he said, basically giving feedback on PvP is a bit of a fool's errand, because we don't know what Bungie's own vision for the game mode is.
That's true.
For the mode itself is. We don't know if they want it to be this casual party thing. We don't know if they want this to be this serious supplemental experience to the entire game. That's what Joe Blackburn thinks. He's definitely come out a couple of times saying, we want PvP to be the place where you test your PvE guns. Well, fair enough. Okay, that's a reason. That's exactly that. And you give feedback in the spirit of achieving that goal. However, when it comes to PvP experiences, the line is a lot blurry. It's not as defined in terms of what is the expectation, what is the thing we're looking for here, what are we trying to achieve here? Is, I think, the big thing that is missing from PvP. So we can sit here and we can talk about game modes all the live long day, but we need to also understand. We perhaps for our own discussion, we need to define what's the goal here.
That's fair. And I would make the argument on the similar topic as this, like, an action speaks louder than words situation, right? If Bungie has a particular vision, help us figure out what that vision is and give us things that can make tools, or at least plot a scatter point as to where we're going. Like, you could argue Eruption and Fortress they certainly have a flavor to them, right? I think the vast majority of players disagree with the flavor. And the fact that here's what's interesting to me. Bungie is willing to put out these modes, right? But they're not willing to stick to their guns. You know what I mean? Like it sounds odd, but like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Continue.
Yeah, it's like, why, if you really want this game mode to work, even if people are like, I kind of hate this game mode, players are always going to complain. We are the best complainers on the planet, especially Destiny players, if I may be so bold. Destiny players are great at complaining, right? This shouldn't be new. What is it that Bungie is scared of? It feels odd. It feels like there's a disconnect between Bungie going, I really want to see this work, and I want to test this out, versus, no, we want to make sure that the players are happy, which it feels like we're not getting either. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like there's a disconnect between the two.
System failure is the best way I can describe it, because there's something is happening somewhere along the pipeline where the feedback's coming in, and for whatever reason, there's no consensus about how to address the feedback or how to takes the majority of the feedback and implement it into changes that the community likes. Maybe that is happening, and then there's that IGN article thing where they can't make the changes because they're not allowed to make the changes.
Right.
Which I think is probably what's happening here. So I think they do see it. I think they do know, and then they're not allowed to make it better because they're on a mandate from the company to make a minimum viable product.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. All right, we've gone over quite a few of my more salient points on everything here. Let's kind of go through a couple of the stragglers here. Do we have any ideas for game modes as a whole? I know I have at least one to talk about here, but do you have any ideas for game modes that you would really, really love to see? And can you give us some ideas of how the mechanics of those that game mode would work?
Well, one of my favorite game modes of all time is Team SWAT from Halo. Where everyone is given a standard loadout, which is a battle rifle and a pistol. So in this case, in Destiny, it would be a battle rifle and a pistol.
Yeah, okay.
Or sidearm. So only headshots kill. Now, SWAT works because your movements isn't as crazy as Destiny. Your general time to kill isn't as crazy. Now, you can kill in SWAT with body shots, but it takes a very long time compared to like just boop, headshot, done. And it does, there's a lot of like, sometimes you'll spawn in and you'll fall over dead. There's a lot of that, especially on the smaller maps. But there's also a lot of potential to outplay. There's a lot of potential to turn situations around, to do crazy plays. Like if you do a 1v2 or 1v3 or 1v4, it feels incredible. It's like very, very strong crack cocaine. Let's put it that way. That would be my number one request, is have a headshot only game mode. Although you could just play any 6v6 game and use a sniper rifle. Lamau. Another game mode I would like, or just somewhere similar along those lines. What if we just had locked loadouts? What if we just said, hey, yeah, I know, listen, you've got this you've got all these guns. You are only allowed in if you have this loadout. You can use whatever you want, but let's say if it is a high impact pulse rifle and a fusion rifle. So you can use phototactic spiral with Nox Perennius. You can use messenger with frickin', I don't know, glacier chasm. Like, set the parameters, let people choose within those parameters, and then see what happens. And I think that would be a very, very, very interesting way to go about things.
It's very interesting that you brought up the idea of locked weapons or specific weapon requirements, or what I've been thinking about, which is a weapon filter, where you're not allowed to launch the mode until you have these types of weapons equipped, like how certain activities kind of do something similar like that. And I think that's primarily where Bungie has a hard time with, like in terms of like technically, in terms of the code, right? Because in other games, let's just Call of Duty, you have like your gun game where you go through and the game gives you weapons to use, right? But we've never seen anything like that. The only thing we've seen that comes close is Team Scorched, right? Like that's the only time we've ever had it where it's like, you must use insert weapon here, right? But I would love to see it to where we can do something like gun game.
That's just giving me an idea.
Yeah? What you got?
Destiny 2 gun game, but the guns are the stuff that you haven't unlocked yet.
Oh, so like Interesting. See,
Forces you to go back in PvE, go get that, or maybe like it's raid weapons. Like it gives you variety of raid weapons. There's so many possibilities here.
yeah,
Be creative.
yeah.
Like you could use PvP, a gun game in PvP, as promotion to do things in PvE. It's, oh, I really like that Abyss of Defiant in PvP. I want to go get that now.
Yeah, like an advertisement, basically. That's devious.
Kind
That's
of, yeah.
quite clever. Yeah, like I'd like stuff like that. I'd even be okay with, and this is something I'd love to see from even PVE activities like the coil. I'd love something where you come in and you only have this thing, and then as you get kills or something, it upgrades. Like imagine even in, I know we're bringing outside the context of PvP. Imagine in the coil, when you get to the end, you start out with like, let's say, a pistol and a shotgun or something like that, like maybe a hand cannon and a shotgun. But when you get to the end, you get to pick between 3 different chests, and each of them will have one of the little icons above it. It'll be like a pulse rifle, a sniper rifle, a sword, right? And you're like, okay, what do I want to grab here? And the weapon will be rolled randomly, but like that's now your new weapon, and it overrides whatever your previous weapon was, and now you're locked into that. Something like that for obviously PvP would be so much fun. Not even necessarily like the roguelike element, but just the ability to come in and be like, this is Team SWAT. Everyone has Forerunners and BXRs, right? Like,
Yeah.
headshots only, you know? It would be great.
Like somebody in chat, Red Falcon said, roguelike PvP.
Yeah, roguelike PvP. Yeah. So
That'd be great.
That'd be great. Yeah, and I agree. And like having filters for weapons, I feel like would open up an entire new plane of existence for PvP stuff, right? But
Yeah.
here's
Yeah,
an idea.
I agree with that.
Here's an idea I have with a game mode. Why don't we have like an MVP game mode? Use the same technology that's currently being used for Eruption, but make it to where the points, like you need like, let's say 5 points each. Let's say 6, because you need to get through all the players, right? Every time the MVP dies, you get a new mark, right? Oh, thank you, Epic DM, for joining supporter. Where one person on each team at the start of the round is marked. They're given that mark over their head. Everyone on the map can see where they are, and your goal is to protect the MVP. Be as campy as you'd like, right? Because obviously everyone knows where you are.
Get down, Mr. President.
Get down, Mr. President. Exactly.
Yeah.
I would love something like that. And like I said, we've already got.
But
like,
you just know.
Mm-hmm.
But you just know there's going to be some blueberry who's just like, oh yeah, this is control. Let's go.
Let's just run in there, right? But like, why not rely more on the pressure of the team to understand and be like, hey, what are you doing? Like that's kind of part of the point of the game, though. It's like to be a little bit chaotic, right? Like, open us up for more stuff like that. Ooh,
or if you really want to enforce that, you could use like the togetherness buff, which I severely dislike, but it would get the message across. Stay with your bloody teammates.
Yeah. Or like, here's something that's crazy. Remember that Shaxx used to announce when heavy ammo was up? You remember that?
Oh yeah. Yep.
I don't know why we don't have that anymore, or just Shaxx announcing more stuff in general. Maybe we don't have access to Shaxx anymore, but for licensing reasons or contracts or whatever, right? But like, if it was,
I'll do it.
Yeah, if it was an MVP mode, right? Like you could say, you have Shaxx come on and say, protect your mark, hunt theirs. Like you could spell it out to players in a few sentences, right?
Text on screen. Text on screen would be a fantastic way of doing it.
Listen. I believe the Destiny fan base is smarter than the Call of Duty fan base. Call of Duty has our ass kicked when it comes to game modes, and they are doing just fine. They operate just fine. I believe in us.
Okay, but counterpoint: people who play COD want to play PvP.
That is true. But the people who are clicking on the PvP game mode, like especially nowadays, come on, Nomad, let's not beat around the bush. Especially nowadays, the people who are clicking on the PvP node, they're there to play PvP. Very rarely are they there for a PvE reason.
This is true. That's also true.
Let me get Psycho Gamer's super chat here. A game mode I thought of is a type of dodgeball game mode. No guns can be used, and you can use the Cabal explosive orbs to launch at your opposing team. Yeah, that's kind of like the idea of Relic, right? That's kind of on that general feel, and similar to like Team Scorched as well, right? They're all kind of in the same category. But yeah, something like MVP, I mentioned attrition, King of the Hill, or just Hardpoint, where the map or the spawn point will move around to different locations. You get a brief period to know where they're going to pop up from, and then you have to go over there and you have to defend it. Or try to take over it or whatever it may be, right? Something like that. Some people mentioned capture the flag, where there's a flag at either side of base, which is similar to Rift, right? It's similar to how Rift works, but the difference is that it's actually in your base, that they have to get it and then now take it back. And again, I feel like we already have the tools to make that happen, or it's just, I don't know, call it like Homestead or something. I don't know, like Fortress that we already got the name for, where it's just Rift, but the Rift spawns in the enemy's base, and then you got to take it back to your own, something like that. So, the guy says PvP quests are dead, which makes me sad. I liked things like the Last Word and the Thorn quest. Yep, I remember when Destiny 1 launched, it was, I would argue, a perfect 50-50 split between PvE and PvP, and Bungie, I felt like, was aware of it, and now we're at a point now where that is not the case, where it is very much a PvE game with PvP that is just sort of tacked on, and that's been just because, not because Destiny or Destiny PvP got any worse. I think it's always been good. In fact, I would argue it's gotten better. It's just because I don't think they can monetize it. I think that's the biggest incentive, is that they can't monetize a recurring PvP experience. And some people talked about like a subscription system, which that's a whole can of worms right there. Anyway, any other game mode ideas? No, Matt. I've got a couple more to launch here a little bit.
Can I hit you with a big one?
Hit me.
Trials.
Just as a game mode. I think it's time to call.
I think it's time. It's time to put it to bed.
Yeah. Ooh, that is a hot take. What's your thoughts? Let me hear what you have to say.
I'm a huge Trials fan. I'm a very, very big Trials fan. I love the idea of balls to the wall competition. Mm-hmm. I like the current implementation generally.
Right.
But I think we're getting a little, I think at this point in time, so I got to be very careful here.
Yeah, you do. People are I can already hear the pitchforks rattling.
So I think something in terms of an endgame PvP experience needs to exist, and I think it needs to be there for the very, very best people in the game. I think there's nothing quite like Trials. It's very good. Elimination and Dominion, all of these things are not good enough for Trials. And I don't think the format of getting 7 wins, with 2 losses, admittedly, but getting 7 wins in a row, or 7 wins total, I don't think that's a good idea for the game mode that we have, because there's too many variables that come with something like this. There's less things that you can control. There's a lot of network latency. There's a lot of skill discrepancy. There's a lot of matchmaking, finagling, in the sense that you can skirt around getting around teams by going as a 2-stack. There's a lot of randomness that goes with going solo, and then stack v stack is probably the best way to experience Trials and the best, most competitive way to do it. But let's be real, how many people are doing that when they can do or solo?
Yeah.
I think as a game mode itself, I think it's very played out. It's like Control. It's there. It's boring more than anything else if you've been playing Trials for as long as I have. I think we need something new. I think we need something very different. And I think this thing of Dominion, where it was basically a direct result of people asking for an objective in Trials, again, it feels like an optional objective. It feels a little bit half-baked. Because the only time that zone comes into play, really, competitively, is when there's a bubble up.
Yeah. Yep.
Or when somebody is decided, or a team or a group of solos has decided to just stay in the back of the map for whatever reason.
Right. Interesting.
So I think it's not a concrete thing. I don't have a suggestion here on what to replace it with, but I think it's perhaps worth having a conversation about calling time on it.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't completely disagree with you. And ironically, this is also going to be a hot take. You guys ready for a hot take? I think matchmaking killed Trials. I think the ability to solo queue kind of killed Trials, because I feel like part of the experience, and like I know, like some people don't have friends, and I get that, like that's kind of the joke.
I don't have friends.
The joke is like I can't get a group together and whatever, right? But I think like you said, the best experience was when you went in there with a group of 3 and you were all talking to, like, it became a camaraderie, right? And I think the solution would have been better if the LFG that we now have, the Fire Team Finder, was implemented first, and then the matchmaking maybe came second, because I feel like that would have like we might not even had the need for the matchmaking had we had the fire team finder. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't disagree that when you say the fact that there's 3v3, like that's the best experience. Solos is just weird, it's wacky, and then you get the stacks and you get the 2 and the 1 and the 2 and the 1, and it's just weird. Like I've been going through comp doing the 0 to Ascendant challenge, right?
What?
And consistently.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
just for clarity, what do you mean by matchmaking kill trials? What is your definition of being killed?
Yeah, I think long term, I think it lost a little bit of its what's the word I want to use here? It's
prestige, allure.
Yeah, it's mystique. It's sort of like it's prestige. Yeah, where like you had to go in with the team and you were working with that team. I remember back in my day, back when I was just a boy, back when I still was playing Destiny 1 even and doing that kind of stuff. Back during that time, I remember basically training the whole week with trials in mind, playing Crucible with trials in mind. Right? Because I needed, and playing with my team with trials in mind, right? Coming into the Crucible with the thought process of I need to be good enough to be able to compete in trials. I want to compete in trials because there was the mystique, there was the prestige behind it, and I was trying to constantly get games with particular friends, right? In order to build our teamwork together and to work it up. Where sweating felt like it more had like a better end goal. Where nowadays sweating is just like, okay, you want to flex your KD, good on you, pal. You know what I mean? Like it's weird to say, and I know that this is an unusual, hot, and weird take, but I feel like because we have the ability to just queue in and make trials a whatever thing, and there's like a lack of a sort of barrier to entry, it's like the holiness, if I may say, of trials, right? The approaching the throne of trials doesn't have the same like aura around it anymore. And unfortunately, we're at a point where we have matchmaking, and there's still a lot of people who still haven't been able to make it to the lighthouse, despite the fact that they're able to solo queue, right? So it's like, ultimately, we just kind of gave people false hope at the end of the day, where we told them, oh yeah, you can go with just about anybody and you'll be fine. And unless they got lucky, which can happen, and that's cool, right? And you can have teams where your twos perform really well. It just ultimately ended up being a carrot on the stick that a good portion of people never really were ultimately able to achieve anyway. So like, I know what I'm saying. I know that I'm saying matchmaking was bad for trials, and like I don't completely agree with that, but like my point is that I think it was sort of like a short-term gain and a long-term loss that nobody really expected.
So I totally, so I guess for me, I see what you're saying. I definitely see what you're saying. I know exactly what you're trying to say, which is that the vibes were immaculate.
Yes, exactly.
The vibes in Destiny 1 and arguably early Destiny 2 with Trials of the Nine were insane.
Yeah.
The vibes got ruined because people stopped playing.
Yeah, that's true.
And then they took it away. And when it came back, it didn't feel like the same thing. It didn't feel like the same Trials of the Nine. I think maybe perhaps what didn't help was thematically it felt worse.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like Destiny 1 thematically, Trials was a big deal. And Trials of the Nine, having its own social space that you could climb up the tower, that felt incredible.
Yeah.
Like that was a reason enough to do it. But now the vibes are just like, oh yeah, there's a thing you do and Saint's waiting for you at the end and there's an Osiris production. It's not this, it was kind of fun at the beginning when it came back in Season of the Worthy, but it doesn't feel special anymore.
Agree. Yeah.
And I think and all the different changes they made to make it more accessible, I don't think that's the problem at all. I think it stems from a fundamental TLC issue, which is tender love and care, which is just that it doesn't feel like as big of a deal as it used to back in the day when I were a lad during the war, etc., etc. And I don't know how much of that is just from the game mode itself and how it's been reintroduced and how it's been implemented and how it just sort of exists besides PvP, PvE and PvP, or if it's just the fact that we're old and we're just jaded and bitter and you know, we've seen it all. And even if we had Destiny 1 Trials now, we still wouldn't be impressed.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, that's much more on point for what I'm trying to drive after. You're definitely on it because yeah, it's the vibe of Trials. Like it was the vibe of working together with the three and building that up and having that mystique that was around it. Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So let me take this real quick from Good Noodle. Trials basically became elimination with extra sweat and a different announcer. You just go in with nothing in mind. I agree. Like, it feels like it's been watered down, but not from a skill standpoint, because you still have to be good at the game in order to do well in trials, at least to some degree. But just from the way that you approach it is just the same, right? It's the same as you'd approach competitive. Like, the fact that competitive and trials exist kind of on the same level with each other, you know what I mean? Where they both kind of operate in the same way, and some people will say, well, competitive means you're better at the game. No, trials means you're better at the game. And neither really ultimately give you that same feeling of like accomplishment, like when you've made it, which is partially why we're doing the Zero to Ascendant series, where we're going in with the idea of like, no, we are going to make it impossible for ourselves, and we're going to climb that mountain. Like, there's no, what was it? I think it's Augustus wept for there is no more worlds left to conquer. Is the quote? Like, it doesn't have the same feel anymore, and I think that's absolutely right. It's the feeling of the accomplishment of getting that stuff is gone, and unfortunately so. I think that making trials solely accessible is actually a good thing. Yeah, I agree. Like, and that's the thing. It's like, I know what I'm saying. It's like, obviously, I want people to be able to engage with it, right? Obviously, that has ultimately been healthier for the player pool. But yeah, Nomad hit it on the head. What I was more chasing after, without really even knowing it, is the vibe of it. The vibe of it was really more what I was going after. And there's Ferris himself. We were just talking about you. Imagine if Bungie made raids soloable. The prestige of them would feel gone. They'd feel like a fancy strike. That's how Trials matchmaking feels now. It's just fancy PvP playlist. Yeah, it's lost the prestige. That's absolutely correct. Absolutely right. That was an interesting rabbit trail. I'm glad we got on that, though. That was a good one. That was a real good one. Let's talk about some of the ways that the game modes aren't being interacted with, or rather things that we don't see discussions on too often. Let's start with one that does get talked about quite a bit. By the way, do you have any other thoughts before we move on, or are you good to go?
No, good to go.
Okay, cool. All right, let's talk about the artifact mods. A lot of people have been saying. All
Ha
right, yeah, I already got a response. Let's hear what you have to say, Nomad. I'd love to hear what you have to say about artifact mods.
Good in theory. They're good. They're fantastic. Let's keep them. Let's actually have more artifact mods, and I want them all active at this time. No, they have no business being active in PvP. Zero. They're PvE modifiers. They're very, very good. I think they make a lot of sense for the game. It's annoying at the start of the season when you don't have everything, and then you see the optimal strats come out, which involves bounty hoarding and all that, having them all unlocked. But in no reality should artifact mods have any effect in PvP.
Do you think that's contrary to the feeling as a whole? Do you think that player base as a whole prefers to have the artifact mods to keep the game interesting season by season? Do you think that would ultimately hurt replayability?
No, because people don't go into PvP to have their artifact mods do things. In fact, build crafting in PvP generally isn't as big of a deal as it is in PvE. There are things you can build with. There are things that make life easier. There are certain things you can come in and experiment with. But generally speaking, the only one that I can think of is Flint Striker, where you have like the rapid precision kills hits get you radiant. Yeah. That's a huge problem. That's a massive problem. I don't think artifacts mods help with replayability in any way when it comes to PvP, because there's so much other things in PvP killing replayability.
Right. No, and just to be clear, I agree with you. I think that artifact mods are something that shouldn't be on in PvP. Like, I could maybe see an argument for either from the technical side, if it's hard to disable them and this is just how it works. Okay. I could see it from we want to make sure the players aren't confused as to why it is and isn't working. But I feel like these are all arbitrary problems. You know what I mean? Like, these are problems that can be fixed from other ways more elegantly, rather than waving our hands and saying, oh, well, this, we can't do this, or whatever, right? Because we already have artifact mods that don't work in PvP, let's just say, right? Like, that's already a thing that exists. Things that would, on paper, make sense to work, right? Or it's like, oh yeah, this is something I absolutely could proc in PvP, and it just doesn't, right? Like, that's a thing that can happen.
It's more so that the stuff that isn't so much related to combatants, but to the self, to the player. So the big one that comes to mind is Classy Restoration. That was not nice.
Yeah.
That was not nice to deal with. It felt cheap using it, and yet it was so free and so easy that you couldn't help but use it.
Yeah.
It was, if you didn't use it, you were a scrub, let's be honest, with scrub mentality. Saying, I'm not going to use it. I'm too good to use it. Shut up. Everybody's using it. Just use it yourself.
No.
And it's just like whenever there's an artifact mod that boosts the player in terms of movement or healing or reload speed, for example, like that's when things get a little bit silly.
Yeah. Yeah. And that'll be a topic for another discussion, because I also want to talk about sandbox balance from the principal point of view, like from the top down. But we obviously aren't going to talk about that right now. We've already well into our time here, which we are going to wrap up hopefully soonish. But yeah, I agree. And I think that if we had more focus down and we started to push things away, like artifact mods, which artificially increase the power level of Guardians in PvP, and by extension diluted the power of our weapons, let's say, right? It pulled it away from being a focus on hit your headshots and position correctly and stuff. Like all of that starts to fall away the more powerful and more BS your stuff tends to be, right? Generally speaking. That would helped push this out, this burnout feeling. I think it would have helped a little bit, because we would have had this being able to be held on to a little bit longer. And even if there was something where it gets activated in PvP, something that is very support forward. Like the thing that frustrates me is that we see a lack of support stuff. And if there was an artifact mod that was more about like helping your team out, okay, that's I think more in line for something that would be allowed. But I'm kind of getting off in the weeds here. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
We mentioned this here a little bit, but let's talk about this a little bit more. Loot rewards in PvP. Do you think bringing back the pinnacles, like the Not Forgottens, the Recluses, the Mountaintops, do you think that would do anything healthy for the game? Do you think that would be positive, negative, wouldn't do anything at all? What do you think?
They were removed because they were unhealthy for the game, and I don't think that's changed, to be quite honest with you. I think when you do a one-for-one comparison, I think Not Forgotten in its original form would be right at home with the current time to kills in the sandbox. I think that would be fine.
Yeah.
Mountaintop is kinetic forbearance. Forbearance now exists. There's that. Recluse would probably still break the game if it was still with Master of Arms and everything. Revoker would absolutely still break the game with its refundable ammo. I think those are the main ones. And then you have Redrix's Claymore, which would be fine because every pulse seemingly has Desperado now. Yeah. I think the pinnacle weapon was a good idea because it gave people something to chase, something really good to chase. The only thing, but it becomes a question of the haves and the have-nots. Like I firmly believe everybody can complete a raid. They can complete Root of Nightmares. They can get the best shotgun in the game, which is conditional finality. But not everybody can go flawless. Not everybody can go ascendant. Not everybody can do the very, very hardest challenges in PvP because PvP is harder than PvE. And I don't think fundamentally, I do not believe that having loot that is better than other loot locked behind one of the most inaccessible playlists is good for the state of the game as a general thing. And I don't think that's a particularly controversial thing to say. I think most people agree with that. But the people who disagree with that are more so, I believe, focused on, again, the vibes that created, the chase, the grind. Let's team up and go try and get Ascendant. Let's get a group of 4. Let's go play comp for a little while.
Right.
The only people who are doing that now are, streamers and PvP clans who just enjoy each other's companies and they like a little bit of the competition on the side. Before, it was sort of like a wide chase. Like the community wanted Not Forgotten because they knew how good it was. And if you had it, it felt like a real status symbol. If you brought that back now, I don't think it would be as big of a status symbol as it was because by and large, the vast majority of the people who care about PvP have left Destiny 2. They're off playing other games. And now we just have the new generation of players who know PvP exists, but they don't understand the prestige and the sort of the want to play it so much. So I think the vibes will never come back when it comes to those things because the same players aren't there anymore. But that being said, the vibes are different this time around. What is it about now? Fashion and build crafting. What if we locked universal ornaments? The best universal ornaments in the entire game that we've seen from a design perspective, you put that at the high end in comp, you will see a comp playlist revival like nothing else.
Yeah, and I was gonna go that direction too, so I'm glad you kind of beat me to the punch. Let me hit you with another thought here. As you were speaking, it kind of gave me some neurons fired in my brain hole. And I came up with this. What if, instead of making the loot rewards at the end of the pinnacle PvP activities, what if instead of making them ridiculously good in PvP, what if you made them ridiculously good in PvE? What if it was a situation where... Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Just like a situation where like you wouldn't, once you got the thing, you got the MacGuffin or whatever, you started to, pound on people even harder. What if a situation was like, okay, cool, now that I have this, I can make the other side of the game a little bit easier, and it rewarded you for reaching that level of skill, right? Because like we've already talked about, like PvP is just generally harder than PvE. And what if it was like, okay, here's like, you did it, and now because you did it, you can go make PvE easier for yourself because you're clearly a capable guardian. You know what I mean? What if it was something like that? What are your thoughts? And I'm wondering what chat has to say about something like that too.
So historically speaking, PvP players have no issue going to PvE to get good PvP weapons.
Yeah.
PvE players take great issue going into PvP for anything.
Yeah. Yep.
So if you can solve that problem, you're well on the way.
I know. But, like if it were me as the developer, like as John Bungie himself, I'd say like tough. Get good, That would be
but like,
the players who are good at this part of the game get rewarded. They get to go make the game easier for themselves. Get good. Oh, you're good at both? Fantastic. You'll reap those rewards for yourself as well.
It's like if you put the best PV, well, I mean, we did have that with Recluse and Mountaintop, didn't we, for a very, very long time. And people hated that. They hated it. I remember still the vitriol you would get. If you ever LFG'd with Mountaintop Recluse, you were expected to be the guy. You were the man because it was so good. And sure enough, you could walk around blindfolded. You'd be fine. And you'd clear most things. But most people, if you said, look, I really want to get Mountaintop Recluse, you want to come with me? I remember many people in my clanmates, the sort of the overwhelming reaction was like, oh, fine, I guess. You don't want that. You don't want that feeling to have. You don't want people to have that feeling when you're trying to play PvP.
Right. Yeah. Like, here's a follow-up thought. What if we gave two paths? What if we gave it to where, let's say that there was the equivalent of Mountaintop Recluse, something that was ridiculously good in PvE, right? Just like, oh my gosh, this thing is so good. But if we also gave them the path that was a bit longer, but doable, even if you're just Joe Schmo can't freaking hold a gun the right direction, right? Like it took you much longer, but it rewarded you for being better. What if it was a situation such as that? What do you feel?
Like a craftable, like if you leverage the crafting system for that, for example.
Oh, that's a great idea. We'll talk about the
like have the patterns, like get all the patterns all at once, like I don't know,
like
Ascendant or you could have patterns randomly drop through normal Crucible. That could be one method. Yeah.
Something like the pattern for this weapon, let's just say, drops every win following 7 wins in Trials of Osiris, right? Like it'll drop every single game, win or loss. If you made it all the way to 7, boom, you basically guarantee to get 3, right? Like,
so this is the only thing I'd say about that is there's 2 issues with that. First of all, there's an identity issue. Why are there great PvE guns and PvP, etc.? That's a big issue, just ideologically. Secondly, it would kill the grind of PvP after they get the pattern, because they'd be like, thank fuck that's over. I'm never going back in there.
What I would argue that's already happening, though. I would argue that's already a thing.
Yeah, so why suggest that in the first place, right?
Well, I mean, it's at the very least, it's like sort of like the, you gotta crack a few eggs to make an omelet, right? If it's a situation where we get players who would normally never touch PvP with the 39.5-foot pole, if we get them in games for a couple, right? Maybe, well, first of all, best case scenario, they get in there and they go, hey, it's actually not that bad. Like, I gave it a hard time, but like now that I've kind of got my feet underneath me, I kind of don't hate this anymore. Like, that would be best case scenario. But even ignoring that, we get just more player base, right? Faster queue times. We get less situations where it's just sweat versus sweat, and it's just these massive 6 stacks of people who are just trying to play it like it's the $30,000 Destiny Olympics or something like that. We just add more players to the pool, right? And it again, there already are going to be players, and I'm sure there's plenty of players in the chat who don't want to touch PvP at all. But if they're given a reward to go after, there still will be a loot incentive for them to chase after, right? And they will be willing to put themselves through hell because the reward on the end of it is so gratifying to them. I don't know, just a thought. Let me take the super chat because we put it off here for a second.
Sure.
Different topic, but can we talk about the fundamental change Iron Banner has went through over the years? I think the shift hurt Iron Banner from what it was. Yeah, are you cool with shifting topics here, Nomad? Are you good with?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you don't have any other thoughts following the loot discussion?
I mean, I have many thoughts, but like, let's move on.
you got the time if you want to get them out. This is the opportunity.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We're okay.
Okay. So we from Young on Watch wants to talk about the shift and the fundamental changes Iron Banners went through over the years. I'm curious as to what you mean by that exactly, because like I feel like Iron Banner nowadays is Bungie's excuse to bring out a new game mode and play around with it. Like Eruption, like Fortress and such, and they keep kind of defaulting back. And now they've got the thing with the rewards and stuff, which I think it's cool, by the way. I will make a point on this real quick. I think it's really cool that you get more rewards if you're wearing Iron Banner gear or using Iron Banner weapons. I would more prefer it if it was not Iron Banner armor and transmog at all. It was just the weapons, and that way you would have a more limited loot pool. And because it's around for limited time, no big deal, right? You're kind of forced to use stuff. Like, I want more reasons to have other players use other stuff, because even myself, I have been a Mida multi-tool main with a shotgun and an astrocyte burst for 4 freaking years, Nomad. For 4 years I've been on it, because once I find my build, I don't need to change, right? But force me to try other stuff.
We are definitely going to talk about your adventure with therapy. I wonder if that's related.
I've already told you, and I keep telling the audience as a whole that we're the villains of the Destiny universe. We're criminally insane, but nobody keeps believing us. So,
I met somebody recently who I told him I was a YouTuber because they were under the age of 35, so I can say I'm a YouTuber.
Yeah.
And so, what do you cover? Yeah. And then I said Destiny 2, and he's like, oh, no.
I'm so sorry for your loss. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, more reasons to play other loot and stuff. And nowadays, I think Iron Banner is Bungie's attempt to just kind of giving us some new modes to play with for a limited time, and it kind of has become their sort of test bed for stuff. And I just think that's a really bad place to do it, personally. Like, Eruption shouldn't have debuted in trial or the only 6v6 playlist. It should have been something we probably should have play tested a little bit first, got a little bit of player feedback, same with Fortress, before we pushed it over to the broader population and said, yes, this is the game mode now. You know what I mean? We kind of already touched on that, but I don't know. Let's see. Young on Watch has replied, I feel like when they took away power and removed Iron Banner from the middle ground between regular control and trials, it kind of killed the mystique of Iron Banner. To a point, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, to a point. I don't disagree with that entirely. I personally like it that I can take whatever I want into Banner now, because I love build crafting, and I will. As much as I just joked about running the same gear for the last 4 years, right? I will go in and I will try new stuff. And it was a little annoying that I have to power level stuff. But power leveling, I feel like, is an endangered species, because we're seeing more and more things be light level locked, and we haven't gotten a new light level increase since
forever.
Yeah, I can't even think.
It feels like forever.
Lightfall? Lightfall was the last time we had it?
Can I say one thing about this? Is I don't think that power level was ever a good thing in PvP, aside from maybe trials, because even then it's I'm not sold on it as a concept of
what its value
representing experience or having any sort of value. I think it feels very gimmicky to me. I was like, oh, this person has played the game a little bit more,
right?
Very good. Yes, I do less damage now. Right. Like, that feels a bit cheap. Especially when it comes to PvP, where the only thing that should matter is your own skill, right? Mm-hmm. And not how much time you spend with the video game. But I want to pose a question to Young on Watch. What has been the identity of Trials ever.
Banner specifically, but yeah.
Sorry, Iron Banner, not Trials. What has been the identity of Iron Banner ever?
Yeah.
Aside from this weird, wacky game mode where the zones light on fire. Like, it was Control where you could lock out people and go on a hunt, I guess.
Different loot, yeah.
Like, it's never really had its own defining reason for existing aside from, oh, look, Lord Saladin sounds cool.
Right. And I think that's definitely
And
what
yes,
Bungie is going for, trying to put out the new game modes in Iron Banner specifically to
yeah,
give it some
they're
type
trying
of
to give
identity.
they're trying to make it an experimental test bed. And they're trying to, because there's no trials and everybody's forced into Iron Banner for a week, that gives them the opportunity to say, hey, let's try some new things here. And fair enough, because that's more than what they were doing before. But in terms of a reason for existing and in terms of a fun experience, it doesn't change the base PvP experience significantly to the point where it's like, oh, I need to try this out. No, it's just Control with extra steps like in most of the Crucible.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I agree. We got another one here from
Wow, there's a lot of agreement here.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like I brought you on for a reason because I felt like our first podcast would be something that podcast, quote unquote. It's not really a podcast. But,
you mean therapy session / circle jerking session?
Yeah, therapy session / roach session of Bungie. It should have been something that we kind of had similar ground on, and then we'll bring on the spicier the people, right? But yeah, we tend to agree. Anyway, y'all ain't seen. A little over a year ago, I tried Trials for the first time and played it, I think, 5 games. Lost all 5 and was told actually politely not to play Trials since no one was having fun when I did. Never again. So interesting. So you're saying that you went in with Trials, lost all 5, still had fun, but was told that basically you suck and you shouldn't play the game anymore from people, even if it was politely. Am I understanding that right? I'll see if the chat catches up there. But yeah, I feel that. And like, there's always going to be elitism, right? Like, regardless of where you go, freaking look at Twitter. Good God. Dude, I put out a post. This irritated the crap out of me. And y'all 18 says yes, pretty much. This irritated the crap out of me. I put out a post talking about Threaded Spectre and saying like, hey, Threaded Spectre's probably a little too strong. And wouldn't you know it? Hold up, chat. Hold up. Let me pull this up. Boop. Wait for it. Where is it?
This interactivity portion is a 0 out of 10 for me. Come on now. You're better than this.
Come on, wait, I can find it. Where is it? There it is. Let me get rid of this. Boom. Right there, chat. Look at it. Threaded Spectre uptime and threadling strength versus players will be tuned individually in a future global patch later this season. I was right. To all the people who are like, nah, Threaded Spectre's fine. No, it is not. BS. It is a little too strong. Doesn't need to be nerfed into the ground, just a little too strong. Anyway.
Yeah, but this is your fault, though.
Yeah, it's completely my fault. Yeah, I'm the one that did it. Bungie did it overnight with me.
No, it's your fault you got annoyed.
It's my fault I'm annoyed. Oh, yes. I've heard that one a few times.
Like, you went on Twitter. Why are you on Twitter?
Good point. Good point.
Twitter gives the illusion of community, but in reality, it's just people, just liking the sound of their own voice. And I would know because I'm on Twitter.
Yep, that's true. It's true. I've seen your post, man. Goodness gracious. No. But yeah, I was irritated because I was like, here are some points about Threaded Spectre that I think could figure something out and we could make it a little bit better without completely killing the identity. And what ended up devolving in the replies was not people like, and there were some people, was not people going like, oh yeah, I think that it could be cool if it did this. I think this would be good. And kind of like working towards a solution. The vast majority just wanted to prove somebody else wrong. Like, I know that's Twitter as a whole, but damn, is it annoying when we're trying to talk about something game design or game balance or just the community as a whole and everyone's just at each other's throats rather than actually trying to figure out a solution. It's like you ask the community how to make a burrito, and one person keeps trying to explain why tacos are better than burritos, despite that not being the goal at all, and then they're at each other's throats about one or the other. Anyway, that's an aside, and it really irritated me, and I know that's Twitter as a whole, but that was really frustrating. Yeah, I know you guys.
Twitter is Reddit, but less racist, brother. Oh God, I want to talk about that for 20 minutes. No,
Mark, of course, the one that brought it up. Let's see. My biggest problem with Trials is that if you win the first game, your next match can possibly be against people in the Lighthouse game. Yeah, I mean, we can talk about like the mixed matchmaking and stuff, but that's been something that has been talked to death already. Let's see. Any other discussions here? Yes. Last 2 points. Radar. I feel like it's not something that ever gets touched in PvP. And the only time it ever did was momentum control, and I felt like it was a really good change. And I feel like we need more modes that interact with the radar, and more than that, more perks, mods, weapons that interact with the radar. The fact that the Destiny community is so freaking reliant on their radar is shown anytime invisibility comes up at discussion, and particularly Threaded Spectre. Less so with Threaded Spectre because it's just a constant red ping. But yeah, radar has way too much range. I agree, and there's no reason, like, it just is always you're able to get information on basically everyone in the map at all times, even if they aren't on your radar, because you can know how many people aren't on your radar and figure out where they are. You know?
Yeah. It's a huge component of game sense in Destiny too, and it's laughably strong to the point where, is it game sense or is it just free information?
Yes, bingo. I think that radar should be completely overhauled in PvP. I would much rather see it a situation where everyone pings slower on the radar like they do when they're crouched, and when you fire or sprint, just like you were invisible, like you got the invisibility buff, how it operates there, where when you fire or sprint, then it pings you on the radar nice and loud, so that it becomes more of a matter of choosing your fights more accurately and more correctly, and then the people who are actually outside your radar might have a chance of flanking you. And I think that's partially why we see, like in Checkmate, what was a problem for a little while and still probably will be, because one of the rules of game design is that if players can optimize the fun out of the game, they will, and I think that this will happen with Checkmate. Is that you'll get these death balls, right? Where people will just huddle up because there's so much information. There's no chance that they're going to get caught, or they're going to get flanked.
Absolutely.
So, thoughts? None?
I think you hit it. I agree with what you said. I don't have anything else to add there.
Well, damn, man, I was hoping that we'd be able to get a little bit further into the topic. All right.
This is the problem. Is like you and I, we do have long discussions where we chat a lot about a lot of things, but we also agree on a lot of things, which is really annoying because we can't controversy. I can't like.
Yeah.
I can call you 3,000 playground insults if you want, and we can go off that. We can do that.
Call me one
right now,
give me one. We're way too amiable right now. I need to hate you just a little bit. So give me one.
Your hands are too big in your face. You have a face like a farmer.
That's actually pretty accurate. I know I've never face revealed, but dude, my hands are freaking huge. I'm great at the piano. I'll say that. I'm really good at the piano just because of the size.
Well, you know what they say about big hands, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Your thing looks smaller in them.
All right, Max, thank you so much for the dono. Being a PvP fan in the last year, it has been mostly two things: trying new funny builds and a do you say aubergine or do you say eggplant? Nomad.
I say baguette.
Baguette, okay. And a baguette measuring contest. And I would add the idea of using radar the opposite way. Just ping static players. Ping players who are standing still. That's an interesting take on it. I think either direction is fine. Just a direction needs to be taken, I would argue. Like, we're at it, like, Destiny is not Halo. And Destiny started from Halo. It was birthed out of Halo's groin, right? And a lot of the things have maintained from Halo. And that's one of them, is that radar system. Right, and I think that needs to be retired at this point, or
it wasn't as generous in Halo, though.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, that's weird. It's weird, but like the system, the idea, the broad idea was definitely taken over from one to the other, right?
Yeah,
but yeah.
It's just you can like we used radar in like the only thing where I can remember where radar was a huge thing in PvE was the Crota's End.
Yeah,
with the shriekers, but it's exclusively a PvP thing, I feel like. It feels like a PvP mechanic more than anything else. Like, I'll glance at the radar if I can't find an enemy in PvE, but even then, I'm not worried about one or two enemies because they can't kill me.
Yeah.
But in PvP, it's the difference between life or death. And the fact that you just get that information for free is just wild to me. And the fact that it works for so far away. And also, what I find incredible is that it is somehow, for people getting into PvP, not intuitive.
Yeah. It's
like, anytime I've helped people, I've said, you don't look like you're looking at your radar much. Is that true? Like, do you not know what that is up there? So yeah, I see it flash red sometimes when I'm like right in their face. So yeah. There's more to it than that. There's a lot of like, it's a strong tool, but it's not well explained. Is the best way I can put it.
Yeah, and then once you learn how to use the tool, there's not a whole lot of depth that comes out of it. Like, there's still some game that you still have to figure out, like, is this person above me or below me? Are they this far away? Are they that far away? Are they actually in the air and the distance is slightly further than what I think? And so on and so forth, right? But there's so little finesse with radar nowadays. And again, like, once you get good at it, it becomes a crutch in a lot of players. It becomes a necessary skill, is learning how to use that radar. And not in a way that's like, okay, yeah, you need to know where generally people are, but it provides so much information that you can know where everybody is at all time, But let's see. Just responding to Nomad, and I'm off topic. The power level for me provided me competition and drive to get better without playing trials. Thanks.
Interesting.
That's what we were talking about earlier. Mark says, why is Hunter the only class that affects radar? Void, Strand, and Jesters. Titans and Warlocks need something to affect radar. Well, like, I feel like it's part of their identity, though, right? It's like, that's kind of where they get their power from. But maybe a weapon that did something like that. Obviously, we have, like, Rat King, right? Which is just a hunter's ability on a gun. But
you're telling me you want more options than disorienting grenades in PvP?
Well, disorienting grenades are they're definitely a choice. That is definitely an option.
Oh, I got a here's one for you. Give fighting line disorienting grenades intrinsic.
Oh my gosh. No, you're gonna start wars. My goodness. You're gonna start wars. But yeah, I hear what you guys are saying.
To the 15 fighting line fans out there, that one is for you. You're welcome.
Yeah, one person. Nomad, no, stop, bad. Yeah. Anyway, radar. Let's last talk about special weapons. I'm very surprised. This will be our last topic of the day, everybody. So if you have a topic that you want to get it in now. I'm very surprised that they made the change with Checkmate that they did to have you spawn with special ammo. That was actually one of my main points. And it almost feels like I was listened to directly, which feels really weird. Because I don't think anybody else was talking about that. I don't think a soul was talking about spawning with special ammo, but that was like one of my main points, is a lack of like...
Run me through your opinion again.
So like I already mentioned a little bit here, is that my builds tend to be balanced around the fact that I have extremes on both ends of my weapons. And this is also partially why I'd imagine that True Vanguard probably doesn't like this system as it stands as well either. Because he tends to do something like Sidearm Sniper, where I do like Scout Shotgun. If I don't have my shotgun, even if I had some way of playing around and like making sure I had the tools for the exact time that I needed them, I am completely and utterly I am a one-dimensional character at that point, where I am forced to play exclusively long range because I only have my primary, which is only a long range weapon. It's not adaptable. I'm not running an auto. I'm not running a mid-range pulse. I'm not running a, you know what I mean? I'm not running a hand cannon, right? I'm only running a long range. So it means that if I do get in close range spaces, I am screwed. Despite my build being designed around being able to go back and forth between both, I am absolutely screwed for the first like minute of the game, right? Now that I spawn with special, even if it's a limited amount, I can be more careful about making sure that if I do get into close range spaces and I have to make that decision, it gives me more room to kind of work with it, right? Where I can go, okay, well, I don't have my special. I don't have a lot of special, but I can at least, if I do get in close range, I have like 2 mess ups where I'm not just going to get obliterated because I just don't have anything. You know what I mean? So that was my opinion. It's like just the lack of flexibility within a kit. If you had a special weapon, you were basically locked into whatever engagement space your primary was, which basically meant that if you weren't running a adaptable mid-range weapon, you were stuck to exactly the front lines or exactly the back lines, and you had no flexibility in between. So that.
Do you still feel that way when your special ammo runs out and you need to earn it again?
No, because then it's my fault. Now it's been put on me, right? If I was too aggressive with my special, then that's my bad, because now I made my bed, I got to lie in it, right?
Sure.
But if it just like, if I'm screwed from the start, that doesn't feel good. It really doesn't feel good,
right?
Because one of my favorite things to do, even if this isn't necessarily the smartest option, one of my favorite things to do with my very fast build was to get in people's faces, and even if it was for just one engage, just literally blink to their flag cap before they finished flag capping and shotgun some dude in the face and go throwing hands, even though I know I was going to die, but that's not an option. Or worse than that, I get into a situation where I'm on a map, let's say, and we can talk about this here in just a second too, being able to switch loadouts. I'm on a map, let's say like Anomaly, which normally my build in normal Crucible would be fine, because if I keep dying, I keep having special, so I at least get 2 shots of trying to make my special work, where my scout is really not going to operate well in. I've got some room to work with. It's not great, but it at least works, right? And that kind of comes to the broader topic of a whole, is Bungie doesn't allow you to swap loadouts without punishing you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you go between, let's say you've got a build specifically designed for close range with Void, and I need my long range build for Solar, you press that little that swap button, and Bungie goes, haha, all your abilities are now 0 and everything is now reset. Like, okay, what's the point of having a loadout system in a PvP game if I'm not able to swap in any way that's
if you're not
meaningful?
allowed to swap loadout? Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Again, nothing to add there. I agree with you.
Yeah, it's just interesting that they took that direction, because I didn't expect them to go that way, and they did. And like I said, it feels like it was me specifically. I know that's probably not the case, but I'm gonna make myself believe that. I'm gonna gaslight myself into believing that Bungie actually listened to me specifically. One of our videos, because we put out 2 videos on Checkmate. One saying I dislike it, one saying I'm okay, I'm kind of okay with it. So more opportunity. I don't know.
You put it out into the ether, and that's the most important thing. If it stays in your head and you don't put it out there, then it just remains a thought that dies a slow, miserable death, because it's stuck in your head, and we don't want to be in your head because we know you've got issues.
It's very true. It's very true. It's sort of like the you miss 100% of the shots you don't take thing. Yeah. Y'all ain't seen with the another dono. Thank you so much. I had mixed feelings for Checkmate. Hand cannons elevated and scout rifles buried. But I felt lower abilities and no spawn special was perfect. No idea why the change, the 2 best aspects in my opinion. Yeah, and like this is kind of like the crux of this whole discussion, is that no matter what Bungie does with Checkmate, somebody's going to be upset. One side is not going to be happy, right? Because if they make Checkmate more like current game mode, the people who like Checkmate for what it is are going to be unhappy. If they make Checkmate as is, or lean in even harder on it, the people who dislike the direction Checkmate's going are going to dislike it more. I feel like there should be a more clever middle ground that could be explored, and I feel like Checkmate has revealed a lot of information of what that could be, but we're not at that point right now, and it feels like
they've changed them back now. It feels more normal.
Yeah. Yep. Can you make a video asking Bungie to re-release the Scholar? Oh my gosh.
You know what? I would. I 100% would. If Dado didn't make me fucking delete it. I swear to God.
I still need to get... Dude, okay, real talk. While we're here, I don't know if this is like company secrets. How the hell did you get Dado? Like, I would love to have Dado for Spicy Clips. Did you just reach out to him on Twitter or something? Like, how did you go about that?
Well, you see, I have pictures. I have compromising pictures.
No, Matt, I need to know. Damn it! I would love to have that on.
I don't know. Like like after you hit 100K, what people don't realize is that you get invited to the super secret Bungie Discord server.
I haven't been invited to the super secret Bungie Discord server. What the hell?
Well, that's because you bought all your followers. That's why. And Bungie knows.
Speaking of, let me touch this real quick. Hold on.
No, honestly, just DM him. Like, he'll probably respond.
Discord? Or
Discord, Twitter, whatever.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. Like, I always feel so scared talking to people because I know they're busy. you know, and I don't want to be like the hi, I am a guy and I'd like to do a thing, you
How are you
know.
going to have that attitude with nearly 180,000 subscribers? Come on now.
That's probably true. That's probably true. All right, Noodles gave a
Come on.
$100 donation. I should probably acknowledge it here.
Whoa, what?
Yeah,
Noodle? Why are you doing this?
Noodle's a mafia boss. He doesn't like to talk about it though. I want your opinions on the quality of the social media side of the player base over the years when it comes to the life of Destiny. Is it Bungie's fault that Destiny sucks, quote unquote, or is it the players? I'm making pizza.
Good.
I'll tell you this. I'll tell you one thing. I spent 3 weeks disconnected because I was doing IRL things, because apparently there's a whole world out there where you talk to people.
No, that's crazy.
I know. And then I just played Destiny 2 last night for the first time in 3 weeks because of the holiday period. And I was completely oblivious to what people had been talking about for the last 3 weeks. And I genuinely enjoyed playing the game.
Yeah.
Like, it was fun to me. Yeah. I think there's definitely an aspect to social media, to this, even this video and the chat here, where we're talking about certain things and we have vibes and feelings that are either informed by other social media opinions or just from our own personal experiences.
Yeah.
And when you see other people saying, yeah, that's just like me, or that's based, or like I feel the same way, it amplifies those little feelings into bigger feelings because it validates those feelings. So I do think definitely that social media makes smaller problems bigger. However, those problems wouldn't, those feelings and those problems wouldn't exist in the first place if there was nothing to base those in reality.
Right.
So there's a bit of both. I think Destiny definitely could be a better game, but then again, what other game could not be a better game, right?
Yeah.
Maybe Red Dead Redemption. Like, every game could be better. Everything could be better. There could be a better way to do things. There could be a better way to implement this change. They could have done this sooner. They could have done that later. Blah, 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 blah. It could be here till the cows come home. But if you then seek to validate your opinion on social media, what will happen invariably is that whichever way you lean on that spectrum, in terms of positive or negative, you will be pushed further down the track in a way that would not happen if you didn't have social media.
More tribalized is kind of what you're getting at, right? Like, whatever opinions you did have that disagreed with other people get mad at you, you dig in further on those opinions and that kind of thing. Yeah.
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 And then it's true also when things say that there's a couple of people on Twitter who are like unapologetically casual. So when the majority of the Destiny community likes to rally around a change, either good or bad, they will take up the other position saying it was bad for me, therefore I don't agree with the rest of the Destiny community. And they will revel in that contrarianism, and they will feel like they are doing something or saying something or putting up a stand or making a stand for the people who are not heard. And they like to, in some weird respect, martyr themselves for the sake of this unheard, unseen majority that they think exists. There's a lot of that going on in social media. There's a lot of posturing and gesturing and politicking and you know, virtue signaling, I suppose, is another way of putting it, where people like to make themselves feel like a big deal. And this is just a bunch of energy that is very, very secondary to the actual enjoyment of the game. It's distracting from what the game actually is. So I would 100% advocate that if you do like this game and you do like interacting with this game, my number one advice is curate your feed. Curate who you follow. If you see that kind of behavior from anybody, block them or unfollow them. And that goes for me too. I'm not immune from this. I grandstand plenty on my own socials. I'm trying my best not to, and I'm being more cognizant of what I say and how I say it. But you just kind of fall into the trap, especially if you're a creator. You will invariably have one issue that you're really, really proud of, you have a lot of strong opinions of, and it'll get you blocked because you were being an asshole about it. So
interesting. Yeah, and you have a lot of wisdom when it comes to the social media space that I don't think a lot of people have the understand how much wisdom you actually have in there. So not to puff you up more than you already are, because Lord knows you don't need that anymore. I think if we blew your head up any larger, it'd pop. But you do have quite a lot of wisdom in there. I have a slightly different take on the social media space. will refuse to block somebody unless I absolutely have to. My goal for social media is to actually just open up conversations. And I think a lot of the times when you kind of like approach somebody at a more like human to human level, they often will kind of like back down, or you'll realize that they were kind of being a jerk and they'll kind of step it back, or you completely misread them, right? Like on that same Twitter post that I talked about where I was getting mad at people like, dude, why the hell are you busting out your ego? Like one of the things that popped up, you can go back on our Twitter, by the way, follow us on Twitter, TDT Productions, Productions TDT. One of the two.
Nice one. Nice one.
One of the things you could do, one of the things you can see in there is that once somebody roasted somebody's KD because they disagreed that Threat Inspector was too strong. Like that was the conversation that it ended up devolving into, was that instead of it being like I disagree, or I don't think that you're right, or here's why, or whatever, right? It ended up being, no, you're wrong because your KD is low, right? Which is stupid. It's so stupid.
But when you see that, that's the sign of an unserious person, and you should disengage.
Right. But here's what happened. And this is where I'm going to pull the rug on you here a little bit, Nomad. I basically went in and said, "What the hell are you doing? Like, we can just disagree. You don't need to bust out your egos. It's gross," was the word I used. And they basically went, "Yeah, that's my bad." I was like, whoa. Whoa. Wow. That's crazy, right?
You had a 1 in a million experience.
But that's the thing. There are assholes, 100%. There are assholes out there, and you'll never reach them. Some people have made up their minds, and that's it. They're anchored there. But maybe it's me having too much faith in humanity, but I think the vast majority of people, if you approach them with a level of humility and calmness, and you try to not just like, "Oh, I'm going to show you that I'm right," but rather just be like, "Hey friend, you don't need to be like this. Can we just like, let's work together. We're friends here. We're all working towards a common goal. We're all sharing this green marble we call Earth," whatever, right? I have seen it work more often than not. Like at least a 51% win rate. My KD is up slightly above 1, right?
Well, it helps that you don't have a lot of people who hate you, as far as I'm aware. You feel free to correct me on that. So it helps if somebody like you says that. If somebody like me says that, I think I'm a lot more controversial in the scene. I feel like a lot of people either love me or don't like me at all, which is fine. I accept that. So it depends on who it's coming from. It also depends on the headspace of the other place. But I would never seek to do something like that on social media, which is 99% posturing and gesturing anyhow.
Yeah.
I would much rather do that in a forum which is more appropriate for discussion, which is either YouTube, funnily enough, with its comment section, stream, or on Discord, because you spend more time there. If you spend more time with an individual, you're more likely to hear their thoughts and everything like that. On Twitter, it's a flash. You're dealing with just a slice of life, like a split second of life at any given point, a split second of everybody else's life. Whereas with the other platforms, there's more of a time commitment. Like, this person's going to sit down for 10 minutes and watch my video. This person's going to be here for half an hour in my stream. This person's on Discord because school's boring. They'd rather be more engaged with somebody else. And that's a better avenue and a better use of your time, and a more likely good use of your time if you want to, sort of engineer that sort of situation, that sort of feeling, and have these sorts of high quality conversations with higher quality people, I should say. But the trick is getting them there in those areas to begin with. Social media is infinitely more vast. More people are on it. It's more easy, like you said, to reach people and have conversations. Definitely. I'm at that point in my life where I don't care to reach everybody. I care to reach the people that are either care about me or that I find very, very interesting. And I'm less likely to see that on social media.
I would argue, and I think we found something we actually disagree with. I would argue that the people, yeah, I know, right? I would argue that the people who are already on your videos are there because they want to be already. And what you're going to get more is the people who are already on board with your mindset and your opinions. And you're not going to actually reach the people who actually might need that second chance. I'm a believer. Yeah, definitely. I'm a believer in second chances. And I know that it's often a fool's errand, but that doesn't mean we don't try. Right? Like I'm of the mindset that you give it a shot once. You're quick to like, all right, this is a waste of my time. Right? You're quick to jump to that, but you give it at least one shot. You give them that second chance once. And like I said, oftentimes, like, this has happened more often than not, where I'll jump in and I'll I'll be the asshole, and I will throw hands with the person verbally, as it were, not calling them names or whatever, but like I'll try to make them look stupid because their opinion is stupid, or at least I think their opinion is stupid, and they back down. And I'm like, whoa, that's so wild to me. Because like that's all it takes. That's all it takes is just somebody to back down. And even if you don't agree with them, you can disagree with them respectfully. And like we're getting into big, broader topics here. We're getting far away from Destiny, which is fine. Right? This is a good topic. But learning to disagree with somebody is a lost art. It really is. It's a lost art. Learning to just say,
it is.
You know what? That's fine. But I don't subscribe to that, right? Or, hey, that's cool that you think that, but, that's fine. It's not even like a you do you, I do me thing. It's which is an even bigger problem because that's, I feel like a lot of the times comes down to just a kind of a hand wave of, okay, whatever. But it's just more of like this is why we disagree, and we can now come to a better place of understanding each other. We can still respect each other as humans, right? But we can ultimately maybe have a better understanding of that person so that we can work against it later, or we can better bolster our own opinions and go, yeah, no, you know what? I don't disagree with, or I do disagree with that. I don't like that. This is not something I'm going to subscribe to or whatnot. Me some quiet. Am I quiet? I'm not quiet. You're quiet. But,
you're not that quiet.
Yeah. Therapy session for a reason. It's a therapy session, but yeah, anyway, so I would argue Nomad, that you give people a second chance. Like obviously you can't, it's Twitter, you're not going to be able to fight with every single person, but like one of them will speak to you, right? You'll be like, you know what, no, this person is just going about it the wrong way, and I'm just going to just respectfully push back. I think you'll find more success.
I get that. See, it's not that I don't give people a second chance at all. I do believe in second chances as well. It's just that there's so many people who are just looking for a fight on Twitter.
Yeah.
There's so 100%. Many people who just want to be heard.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like when you find those people, just immediately bounce. Just be like, yep, this is a waste of my time. Yeah, and oftentimes I'll call them out. I'll be like, yeah, you've already got your mind made up. You are not going to listen to me no matter what evidence I bring to you. Deuces. Right?
My second perspective is something that I realized over the last 3 weeks or so when I was disconnected. I was just reflecting on everything, especially with Destiny 2 being in the state that it is, creators live and die by their community. They live and die by how well they interact with them, how well they service them, how well they engage with them on a near daily basis. Some people are looking for that daily interaction. Other people are just good with, just upload and I'll be here, no problem. And for a long time, for the last 2 years, I think I've failed my own community because I haven't been true to what built my community in the first place, which is helpful content. Now, I've made weapon reviews, I've done tier lists and all this, but I've definitely trended more towards the side of entertainment. And the entertainment, when you branch off into that realm, you do get more eyeballs, you get more attention, you get more views. If I hadn't done that, I would never have had a video that got 1 million views, which I'm forever grateful for, and I still don't believe that's real. But the upside is, or the downside is rather, that it's got a lot of new eyeballs on the channel, and I spent a lot of time doing what you do on Twitter, but with these people. It's like people are disagreeing or they're fighting, and I would try and be in the comment section or just try and say, hey, listen, this is just my opinion, all of that. And when you spend time and energy away on people who are fighting, you spend less time and energy with the people who are already there and wanting to be serviced by, who are in your community and are looking for that interaction with you as well. And I just wonder, and I can't help but wonder, what if I used that same energy and that same time on people that I don't know and I had no interest in knowing who I was, instead of, what if I took that time and instead of doing that, I spent it on the people who actually want to be here? What if I better use my time to service the community that I actually do have, and put back and give back to them all that they give back to me?
Yeah, and here's the thing. Talking about the whole learning to disagree thing, I don't think your approach is wrong. I think it's a different philosophy, and I think it absolutely has its own merit, right? But I don't think it's wrong. I think you've got a very strong mindset in that, and that it seems at least that you've thought about this quite a bit, and at least from what you're telling me, it checks. So it's a completely different. What was that?
I've spent too much time thinking about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. This would be a topic for another time, because like we generally agree on the broader topic, but it's a matter of how we go about it. And like a lot of the things that we do on TDT is that we have people in the higher end, like within our clan, are often completely contrast to each other in terms of philosophy, religion, politics, etc. But we do that for a reason. But the one thing that we make sure that we have is the same approach, right? We make sure that we always approach things from the same direction. So even if we do disagree on something, the way that we go about it is ultimately going to be the same. And then we can disagree with each other respectfully, and we can hopefully come up with a solution that both parties can at least somewhat agree to, which I think is, again, like a lost artist. Instead of going after a solution, people are just going after trying to make the other side look wrong or the other person look stupid or whatever, right? So, anyway.
Now, do you believe in cosmic balance?
Cosmic balance?
Or just that there should be balance in everything, generally speaking?
Moderation, I would say. I guess I would have to go after what you mean by cosmic specifically.
Just sort of a more general extraterrestrial sense of righteousness is the way it's based in. Basically, it's like there is a law of average. Everything is in a spectrum. You have a good and a bad. They have to coexist. You have a light and a dark, right?
I wouldn't.
Yeah, go ahead.
I wouldn't say so. No, I wouldn't say so. No. I mean, I don't hide this, and I've talked. I mean, I put it at the end of my videos, but everyone here hopefully knows that I'm Christian, right? So I have a different mindset when that comes to good and evil and such, right? But I don't think that there is a matter antimatter sort of situation, right? Iron, okay. I see your super chat, by the way. We will definitely get to you. We're obviously on a very.
I was just saying I was just thinking in just generally in the space of this conversation, this is a very much an oddity in terms of what the average testing conversation is like.
Yeah.
So in the interest of cosmic balance, in the interest of cosmic balance, I just want to say you're wrong, I'm right, get fucked.
There we go. There we go. I'm wondering where you were going with that. I was really confused. I'm like, okay,
I was giving you an out. It could have gone really interesting, but I really wanted to get the comedy angle in there, so thank you.
Yeah. I was wondering what direction you were going to go with that, because I'm like, we got on the topic of, we went from Twitter to talking to people, to the philosophy of how to interact with people, to the philosophy of right and wrong, to now we're talking about cosmic balance and like God, basically. We got...
Listen, let's wrap it up soon, because there is one irrefutable law of the internet, which is Godwin's law. And let's not get there, okay?
The comparison, how quickly people will compare somebody else to Hitler? Is that the...
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad I know that one. All right. Iron says, for example, Misum's letters from Bungie vids that mix the pinch of sarcasm with the Twilight Zone worst nightmare world where the game is made to suck. Yeah, little discussions in there too, right? Because like I feel like you're playing a game. We're content creators. We're playing games. You can't take anything too seriously. Like that's the whole point of playing the game, is that you're not taking it seriously. And anybody takes this game too seriously is immediately a massive red flag, right? If anybody is supposed to take the game seriously, it's us, the content creators, because we get paid to play this game. If you're not getting paid to play this game, there's probably something wrong if you're taking it as seriously as we do. Like there's nothing wrong with loving this game to death. We both love this game to death, right? But there's like a healthy respect for what the game is and what it's supposed to be in your life, right? Haven't seen John Bungie in a while, yeah. So anyway, to answer your question, Good Noodle, is it Bungie's fault that Destiny sucks, or at the players? It is the players. It is 100% the players, because like, yeah, obviously Bungie could communicate better and such, right? But like it's got to stem from somewhere, 100%. And I think that Bungie was doing a better job, as it were, quote unquote, and like. Let me cook here for a second. I think Bungie was doing a better job when it was a person that was talking to us through Twitter. However, that was ultimately not good for the person talking through Twitter. That sucked. But it gave us somebody to talk to, and I think that it ultimately helped feel more connected with everything, right? Obviously, that needed to be changed for the safety more than anything of the management team, the Twitter team. I can't even think of the word right now. But yeah, obviously things could always be better, but ultimately where it stems from is we're humans at the end of the day, and we're going to get shitty with each other. I think that's just kind of the nature of how we tend to operate. So I don't know. Take that as you will. Do you have any thoughts on that, Nomad?
Nope. I'm all good here. I'm all tapped out.
Yeah, I'm starting to run low on juice here too. I got to support the people who pushed the game in a direction I like. Yeah, and I think that's ultimately why people like subscribe to certain content creators and mindsets and whatnot. And, you know, why Dado has been so popular is because he's been so rock solid in terms of just generally being well thought out. Even if you disagree with him, it's like, yeah, that's a good argument, you know? So anyway, I feel like we should probably wrap up here, Nomad. Wouldn't you agree? We've been at this for
do agree, yeah.
2 hours and 10 minutes or so.
You need to go to bed.
You know what? I've got time. I don't think I'm going to be able to put out a video tomorrow, though. That's definitely not happening. I was trying to get it out, but ain't no way. I tried working my ass off to get that video out by tomorrow, but no, it's not going to happen. So maybe a future date. We did get to record the supporter exclusive spicy clips. So if you are this is another plug. Look at this. Look at how smooth this transition is. If you are a Patreon supporter at the legendary tier or higher, or if you're a channel member, now is your opportunity. And I think I can give out 5 channel memberships at the end sometime, probably next week, because I'm unbelievably busy this week, like you wouldn't believe. We will be giving you guys a supporter exclusive spicy clips, so you guys can check that out. But all that to say, 50 games of Gambit vid win. I am not Fallout. You can take that to Fallout. I will not. I'll not be touching.
Yeah, when are you gonna do it, man? Where's our Wolfpack video for Gambit?
Wolfpack Gambit. We had that though. That was like the Reaper, the Collector, all that stuff.
Yeah, but now it's modern day, and all those players have moved on and played other games.
Oh, I got to remake
There's a whole generation of people who have come in from Lightfall who don't know what Gambit is.
That's so true. That's weird. That's a weird thought. All right. Anywho, we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. Nomad, do you have any closing thoughts, comments, or anything you want to quickly discuss before we wrap up?
No, I guess I just, in this sort of weird and unknown territory we're heading into with the new Destiny season, I would just say just try and be mindful and excellent to each other. Just try and avoid silly arguments, because we're all fans of the same game, and I think it's important to remember that, you know, what we've experienced for the last 10 years has been pretty special. Like, we all have our own thoughts and our own feelings about things. We all have our own opinions of how things went down and how it could have gone down. But the fact that we're all still here, and that some of us have been here for literally a decade, you know, what other thing in your life has been able to do that for you except for your own family? You know, like that's the thing I'm taking away from all of this, is for good or bad, for better or worse, this was a hell of a ride. And, you know, we should just try and remember that and be grateful for the journey.
Yeah, and the people that are still playing this game are basically family at this point. Like, we're very strapped for new blood. So if you've got people who are still playing this game, just remember that you're probably in love with this game as much as that person is too, even if they're getting up in arms about it, right? We're here for a reason, you know? So like Nomad said, be excellent to each other. Yeah, this was good. This was fun. I like doing this. Guys, make sure you go check out Nomad. He's a total absolute jerk. I would never ever watch any of his videos, but you guys might. You guys might find something there that maybe is some type of redeeming thing. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, if you are morally inferior to TDT, you will like my videos.
There you go. Alrighty. As we always do with our streams before we close up, I'm gonna check to make sure anybody has any points they would like to spend at the shop. Just gonna double check. No, look for real therapy, my man. Yeah, right. As we're wrapping up here, thanks to the people who showed up and super chatted specifically. Destiny content creation right now is rough. It is hard to be making a living right now. So you guys are the backbone right now of this channel, literally keeping it alive, because I'm looking at income and bills and going, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to be able to make rent. So you guys are absolutely so appreciated. Thank you guys so much. And I don't see anybody talking about points, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Where is my point, or my ending screen? Nomad, you still there?
Yeah.
You want to give us the outro line here in just a sec? Well, I got to make sure I time it with the music. You know, it's important we time it with the music.
What's the outro line again? God damn, I always forget this, man.
Bro, you've got like 15 seconds or less, probably closer to 7.
No, I'm not gonna get it.
Bless your faces and deuces.
Bless your faces and deuces, and also pineapple doesn't belong on pizza. All right, bye.